Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the June 23rd, 2020 meeting of the Municipality of Dysart et al. The first order of business is the call to order from the clerk. So, Mallory? The roll call, I'm sorry.
Okay, I'm going to do the roll call. So when I call your name, please answer verbally with present. Councillor Clark?
Present.
Perfect. Councillor Donaldson?
Present.
Deputy Mayor Kennedy?
Present.
Councillor McKechnie? Oh, you got on mute.
Mute. He's got his mute still. There we go.
Yeah.
Walt, you're on mute. For the roll call, Walt, can you take yourself off mute?
Bottom left corner, Walt.
Good, okay, how's that?
Perfect. Perfect.
Walt is present.
All right. Councillor Smith?
Present.
Perfect. Councillor Wood Roberts?
Present.
Mayor Roberts?
And I'm present. Thanks very
Perfect. All
much.
are in attendance.
Okay, so first item is to adopt the agenda, and how I just need a show of hands. So I need a mover. Larry, Councillor Clark, and seconder Councillor Wood Roberts. Be it resolved that the agenda for the meeting of the Council of the Municipality of Dysart et al. Held on June 23rd, 2020 be approved as presented. All those in favor with the hands? Any opposed? And that is carried. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest or general nature thereof? Councillor Donaldson?
Yeah, under planning,
What item?
number 6. Or
Yep, planning item 6.
yes.
Okay, so that's been noted, and at the time when that item comes up, you will be muted. Thank you very much. The next item is to adopt our minutes from 2 previous meetings, so I need a mover for that. I got Councillor Smith and Councillor Kennedy, Deputy Mayor Kennedy. Be it resolved, the council approves the following meeting minutes as circulated. Dysart et al. Regular Council, the 26th of May, 2020, and the Public Meeting Committee, January 2020. All those in favor? Any opposed? Thank you. Carried. And the next item is our time mayor and deputy mayor's update, and it's mine and Councillor Deputy Mayor, pardon me, Pat Kennedy's opportunity to sort of fill you in with things that are happening in and around either Dysart or the county. First off, I'd like to congratulate Mallory Bishop here today, who is in her new role as clerk. So Mallory, you've been with Dysart for quite a few years now, and we're very thrilled to see you move up to this position of clerk, and I wish you all the best. I'd also like to welcome a new Dysart employee, John Watson, who's our environmental manager, who will be coming in later on that item. And so welcome to the Dysart team, John. Last weekend certainly felt like summer. It was absolutely gorgeous. I hope everybody got outside and enjoyed the weather. It was nice to see our town busy. It almost felt like a normal summer. Many enjoying the lakes, and also things like our newly created patios on the downtown. But I just want to caution everybody that we are still in COVID-19. Continue to practice safe hygiene, continue to do physical distancing and wear masks when that's not possible. It isn't a normal summer. So I just, while it was wonderful to be outside and all that, I just want to caution people with that. This afternoon, I'm going to be recording a mayor's message on a local canoe radio station. And so I've got a few points for that for later. And I'm also going to be writing a message sort of pertaining to the summer of 2020 that will going to run it by our emergency control group meeting this Thursday to proof what I'm saying, and we will be sharing it through social media and also regular press release on Friday. And it's a message, similar to what we're hoping for our town to come and enjoy, shop in town, please, and all that sort of thing. Just as a reminder, with these Zoom meetings, that motions will be from the floor by a show of hands. So I do need to be able to visually see your hand on the screen, and also the voting takes place with a show of hands. I will be asking for those opposed as well. This meeting will be archived on the municipal website. So for those of you watching at home, you can leave and go have a coffee and come back. It'll be archived within the next day or two. You can go to the municipal website and see the remainder portion of the meeting. So without further ado, I'll turn it over to Deputy Mayor Kennedy to update us on probably recovery committee things.
Hi, and thank you, Madam Mayor, and welcome everybody. And Mallory, especially welcome to your new position, and great to have you on the team in a new role. A few things I want to bring everybody up to speed on. First thing, which I didn't know until this morning, was that this is that International Small Business Week, which I thought was a different week than this one, but it apparently is this week. So it's a celebration, and it kind of fits in with what we're trying to do in our recovery committee. We've met twice now. Next meeting is tomorrow afternoon. And we've already we've made a recommendation to the emergency control group of the expediting the street side patios, which I'm happy to say are starting to happen. Cozy is open. I believe McKech's are in the final stages of getting ready. We're also looking at a new summer promotion that I'm going to spring on the councillors here this morning. It's called Welcome to My Ward. We believe that it's an important tool that we can use this summer to highlight the 5 wards within the Municipality of Dysart. And our councillors will act as ambassadors for that week. Week-long celebration highlighting businesses in each of the wards, points of interest, boat launches, parks, that type of thing, just to create some more excitement around all the areas, because we know the municipality is so large, and to concentrate on certain areas like the Ward 3 with Tammy, with the things up at the top end are kind of nice. Harcourt's getting revitalized with some industry. It's great to see Councillor Smith stuff at Canisius Lake. Lots of things happening up there and in West Guildford, and on and on. So we've picked Councillor McKechnie as the first guinea pig for Ward 5. So we'll be in touch with all the councillors here the next couple of days. We're just finalizing the program. We're hoping that it'll run the 5 weeks. And if it's successful, we'll do it twice this summer. So again, it's just a mechanism to highlight the variety of things you can do here in Dysart as we start to return back to some kind of normalcy. We've also been busy with trying to find out more information on a new joint federal and provincial program called Digital Main Street. Tamara has made applications for a couple of the different programs the municipality may have a role to play, and also just to keep apprised of it. There are basically 3 different sections. There's the shop here, which is available to our businesses to take advantage of Google storefronts. And that's a help program offered by the Digital Main Street program. There's also a digital transformation grant of up to $2,500 per business to help them transition over to a website with e-commerce and just updating their material. We're looking at possibly partnering with HCDC on some of these initiatives as well. Very, very much in the preliminary stages at this point. And then thirdly, the Ontario Grants provides municipalities and local communities with grants to implement a digital service squad. And I must confess at this point, we're very, very preliminary, not exactly sure what a digital service squad is. Tamara has, I say, signed up for it, and more information is forthcoming. So this was just announced. A lot of things there aren't any final plans on, but just want to know everybody to know that we're right at the front line of trying to make ourselves aware of what is out there, so that as we reach out to our businesses and community organizations the next weeks or a couple of weeks, that we'll be able to direct them to some assets that they can use. Also kind of exciting is the meeting notes are now posted online, the same place you find our agendas here for council. It's just go down to the bottom. It's called Community Recovery Task Force. So the meeting notes from any minutes are posted there. That's about it for recovery at this point. As I say, we'll be following up with each of the councillors within the next day or so, as far as trying to get the finalization of how we're going to roll this new program out. It's pretty exciting. Mayor Roberts has been in contact with our 2 newspapers and has received some special pricing, so that's exciting as well. So looking forward to this new program. The Sports Hall of Fame, I'll sit on that as a council liaison. We met last week after a number of months without meetings, as some of the members are south for the winter and then COVID hit. So still looking at options going forward. Certainly a virtual first induction ceremony may be the way we're going to end up going. Website design and content is being discussed, and we'll be moving forward with that. And they hope to meet with Parks and Rec staff soon to look at the auditorium upstairs in the community center and just determine what, if any, minor alterations may be needed. And the last thing on my list here this morning is the Welcome Center. I chair the Welcome Center building project. It's on schedule to begin on August the 1st. Really looking forward to breaking ground. We've had numerous meetings with our project manager, Spencer Matthews, as well as municipal staff, our designer, and the Rotary Club as well. Trades have been chosen, and it's been quite a difficult process given how busy all our contractors are. So thanks to Spencer and our staff for working diligently together as a team to make this thing happen. And exciting to see we're just a month away from breaking ground. I'm looking forward to it. That's about it this morning, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions from councillors, either to myself or to Deputy Mayor Kennedy? Your mention of the International Small Business Week, I think our small businesses in and around Dysart and the county, round of applause to them. They have all adapted as quickly as possible to get the PPE, to get plexiglass up in place, to adapt to this new way of doing business. And I'm really impressed because really every business in Haliburton County would probably be considered under small business. So kudos to them. So this portion is a little bit different because we are now including the public meeting for planning issues within the body of the regular municipal council. So the first order of business is to rescind the bylaw. So that's included in your package. So I need a mover and a seconder for that, please. Councillor Wood Roberts and Councillor Clark. Be it resolved that bylaw 2020-40, being a bylaw to rescind bylaw 2018-82, be read a first, second, and third time, passed, signed, and the corporate seal attached thereto. All in favor? And any opposed? Seeing none, that is carried. So for those of you watching, this may seem a little confusing. We're actually going to adjourn our regular council meeting. So I do need a mover to adjourn. Deputy Kennedy, Councillor McKechnie. Pat. Be it resolved that council hereby adjourns the regular meeting of council at 9:12 a.m. to proceed into a public meeting to consider the following: the zoning bylaw amendment application, Lands of Lee, Part Lot 5, Concessions 11 and 12, Part 1, Plan 19R-9015 in the geographic township of Guilford. All in favor? And that's carried. So we are now in the public meeting, and I'm just going to read a bit of a preamble to do with the public meeting. So the public meeting for June 23rd, 2020 is now come to order. The purpose of a public meeting is to present planning applications in a planning forum as required by the Planning Act. This is a public meeting to consider one proposed zoning amendment to the Dysart zoning bylaw 2005-120. During the public meeting, council will consider all information available regarding the proposed amendment, review the staff report, which includes any public comments received to date, and listen to all comments provided during the meeting. Following the presentation by staff and the applicant, council members will be afforded the opportunity to ask questions. The meeting will then be open to the public for further questions. Public participation online. This meeting is, and future public meetings will be hosted via electronic participation format only until the emergency declaration for COVID-19 has been lifted. Any oral or written submissions received in advance of the meeting will be verbally read aloud at the time the application is considered. Information regarding live streaming of the public meeting is available on the municipal website, and all persons who have pre-registered will have an opportunity to present or ask questions about the proposal. No decisions are made at public meeting applications. A public meeting is held to gather public comments. After the public meeting is over, the meeting will be adjourned. We will return to regular council. The application will then be considered by council for a decision on this matter during the planning and land information portion of the council agenda. Once council has made a decision on the proposed amendment, notice will be circulated as per the Planning Act. And all those persons who have been given the municipality written notice that they would like to receive notice of the decision will receive a copy of the decision. You must make this request in writing to the municipality. The Planning Act specifies that if a person or public body does not make oral submissions at a public meeting or written submissions to the Municipality of Dysart at all, before the proposed bylaw is passed, the person or public body is not entitled to appeal the decision by the municipality to the local appeal tribunal and may not be added as a party to an appeal unless, in the opinion of the tribunal, there are reasonable grounds to do so. So at this point, there is one application, and so it is for the lands of Lee on Percy and Claxton Lakes in the township of Guilford. And I'm now going to turn it over, I believe, to Chris Orson to give us a staff report.
Thank you. Through you, Chair, the application is for the lands of Lee, bylaw 2020-41. Council has previously seen this zoning application when brought forward for processing on February 25th, 2020. Council has also heard and processed the consent application on September 4th, 2019. That would create one new lot and one retained lot for the subject lands. This is a zoning amendment for the lands of Lee located in the geographical township of Guilford. The subject property is currently zoned waterfront residential type 6L, environmental protection, open space zones. The subject property is located on Lipsey Lake with access from Misty Knoll Trail, which dissects the north and south portion of the property. The subject property is also well vegetated with varying terrain and a marshy area located along the east portion of the proposed severed lands. There's currently no structures on the subject property. As a result of the severance application H02319, a condition was imposed to change the zoning for the proposed retained and severed lots for their intended use as identified on Schedule A attached to the staff report. The proposed retained parcel would see the zoning go to waterfront residential type 3L, and the proposed severed parcel would see the zoning go to rural type 1L, environmental protection, and open space zones. The proposed use complies with the current provisions of the zoning bylaw. However, the zoning is necessary to recognize the reduced lot size of the proposed retained parcel via severance application H02319. In addition, the severed parcel, which is also subject to the zoning application, no longer has waterfront access, and therefore zoning is necessary to recognize the rural parcel to the rear. The proposal is consistent with the applicable policy, including the provincial policy statement, the official plan, and the zoning bylaw by protecting and preserving the water features. And that concludes the presentation, if there's any questions.
Thank you. What I'll do is I know that the agent for the applicant is on the phone. So Paul, if you have any questions or comments that you want to make, and then we'll take questions from councillors.
Okay, can you guys hear me?
We can. Thank you, Paul.
Okay, good. I just want to emphasize the fact that the severed parcel is merely a lot addition. We're not creating any new lots here. It's just that the total piece, the piece behind the road, the severed parcel, is being added to the lands to the south, and the parcel to the north of the road is a residual piece. So there's no new lots being created. It's just a lot line adjustment. As far as the zoning itself, I can answer any questions. I'm here to answer questions, but I have no presentation.
That's fair enough. I've seen this file. It's fairly straightforward, but I will see if there's any. And we know that there are no questions, nobody registered from the public, and no written submissions. Any questions from councillors? No? Okay, so at that time, then I need a resolution, a mover and a seconder, please, for recommendation to council. Councillor Smith and Pat Kennedy. Can't say deputy mayor. Anyway, it's hard. So. Based on the analysis contained below, Planning and Land Information Department recommends that the report for the lands of Lee, which consists of concession 11 and 12, part lot 5 in the geographic township of Guilford, Municipality of Dysart et al., be received for information, and that council approve the proposed bylaw 2020. There's a dash there. 2020 something. -40. I'm just reading it. We'll correct that on the thing here. I did have a mover and seconder. All those in favor? Any opposed? That is carried. Thank you, Paul, for joining us for those few minutes.
Thank you very much.
And that concludes the public meeting. Okay, I'm sure we'll talk again soon. I need a mover and a seconder to adjourn the public meeting and reconvene regular council. Councillor Donaldson and Councillor Wood Roberts. Be it resolved, the council hereby adjourns the public meeting at 9:21 a.m. and reconvenes the regular meeting of council. Again, even for councillors, this whole bit of having the planning committee within the body of the council meeting is a little bit different, and applications like that may seem fairly straightforward and easy, but they are under the Planning Act to have that. Believe me, I chaired the public planning committee for 4 years previous to this term of council, and there was oftentimes there's 50 or 60 people packed in this council chamber. Sometimes zoning applications can be more controversial. So thank you. We are back in regular council. So moving along, pardon me, I've got lots of paper here. There are no delegations. So now we are just into reports from local agencies and boards. And while there aren't minutes, because not everybody has been meeting, I will go through them. Councillor Donaldson, anything to record? Let us know what's happening at the Harcourt Hall.
No, there's nothing to report.
Okay. Are they working through ways that they're able to open?
I think our next meeting is July the 8th.
Okay. So it's good to just get prepared, and if you have any questions you want to run by the EOC in terms of safe hygiene, etc., best practices. Tamara?
Our staff are working on a protocol right now for our community centers, which they're going to be sharing with both Harcourt and West Guilford when they're done.
That's great to know. Okay, so moving on to West Guilford, Councillor Smith.
Again, nothing to report. Unfortunately, we've had to cancel the Canada Day celebrations because of the COVID situation, and we look forward to recovery and getting back to normal.
Absolutely. Rails End Gallery, Councillor Clark.
Yeah, there's been some, I guess we're planning going on revised goals to deal with the new environment. What they're looking at is means to grow their online audience, for example. We're looking at ways to enhance the tourist experience in Dysart. We're developing alternatives to revive some of the canceled events, other ways of delivering it, so that we're compliant with what the provincial guidelines are. We're looking at ways of keeping the Arts and Crafts Festival up and running, or at least in people's minds, with view to having a bigger and better festival for next year. And they're looking at ways of reopening the gallery to, again, work with a bit of a sales environment that is compliant with what provincial guidelines are. So that's all ongoing with the Rails End, so that continues that work.
Yes, and for organizations like Rails End, that their whole budget is based around some, fundraising and or events, it's going to be very difficult for them. And so with the recovery committee, we are keeping our eyes, ears, and everything open to see. I'm sure Laurie Jones will be also looking, but if something crosses our table as well, that they are eligible to apply for. I know our neighbors to the west, there was lots of money thrown around over there to support those organizations to cover their basic costs where they would have depended on events. So we are looking into that just to be sure. Thank you. So the next is the Halliburton BIA, and we actually have minutes there as well. So Councillor Wood Roberts.
I think they're just very looking forward to getting kind of some of the outdoor patios available to the public. The stores continue to strive to find ways to keep it safe and provide every service possible. They're all more than willing to take orders over the phone or do curbside pickup. BIA members actually put flowers up on the 9th, I believe, and they look great. They will grow out to be very pretty. Community living is unfortunately not going to be able to assist with keeping the streets tidy this year. So that's going to be hopefully not a big challenge if all the storefront places kind of help keep their own places tidy. And we do have a meeting again tonight.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, and one of the things I didn't bring up earlier, well, we can when we get to parks, but just that because there are lots of businesses maybe provided washrooms, whether they're restaurants or not, we have upped our, you'll see, and when we get to the Parks and Rec report, that the cleaning of garbage cans or changing of garbage cans, cleaning of our washrooms in Head Lake Park and in and around have really been increased, knowing that that those businesses are not able to necessarily offer that service. So I have a motion to accept minutes from the BIA. Councillor Clark, Councillor McKechnie. And with Midnight Madness not till the Friday of the civic weekend, there's a possibility if numbers increase, they may be able to do a modified version, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
that's the plan.
Great. Okay, so I mover and seconder. All those in favor? Any opposed? Carried. And there are some more aging well. You probably haven't met.
No.
No. Okay, the Community Policing Advisory Committee and Wellbeing Plan. There is a very lengthy resolution included in your package. Mayor Moffat from Algonquin Highlands has been working very hard on this file. So I hope everybody has read that resolution, and I'll just ask if there's any questions on it. This is something that we have to have, and we want to do it more or less at the county level, as opposed each lower tier municipality or local municipality have its own. It's fairly repetitive, but anyway, if there's no questions, through the clerk, may I ask a question? Do you want me to read the entire resolution?
Unfortunately, yes, Mayor Roberts, I don't think it's on the, I think you need to read it so the members know what it says.
All right, I think I do too. So perhaps I'll take a
Thank
sip
you.
of water and a mover and a seconder. Councillor Clark, Deputy Mayor Kennedy. Whereas the provincial government has mandated all municipalities take the lead on the development of a community safety and well-being plan, the purpose of which is an integrated approach to the service delivery of a wide range of community sectors, agencies, and organizations, including but not limited to local government, police services, health and mental health, education, social services, and community and custodial services for children and youth. That is intended to develop strategies and programs for local priorities, examples, risk factors, vulnerable groups, protective factors related to crime and complex social issues. And whereas discussions about the development of such a plan for Halliburton County that's a bit of a typo, have been held at Community Policing Advisory Committee, known as CPAC meetings, attended by the mayors of all 4 municipalities and the Halliburton Highlands OPP Detachment Commander. And whereas a ministry provided webinar offered to municipalities was attended by representatives from all 4 municipalities on March 21st, 2019. And whereas said representatives determined at the conclusion of the webinar that the undertaking was substantially beyond the resources of the municipalities, particularly with respect to the requirement of a 4 named sectors, agencies, and organizations that currently report to provincial ministries to report then to municipalities. And whereas the provincial government has since mandated that all police service boards and community policing advisory committees be replaced with detachment boards that are to be designed, implemented, managed, and financed by municipalities. And whereas the ministry intends that the community safety and well-being plans shall inform the development of the detachment boards. And whereas the Haliburton Highlands Community Policing Advisory Committee, having discussed the matter again on June 1st, 2020, and having concluded that both projects cannot be managed by CPAC or by any one municipality. And whereas the members of CPAC, with the support of the OPP Detachment Commander, respectfully request that assistance be sought from the County of Haliburton to take the lead on these important matters. Be it hereby resolved that the councils of Algonquin Highlands, Dysart et al., Highlands East, and Minden Hills support seeking assistance from the county to pool modernization funds for the development of an RFP for the creation of a community safety and well-being plan, which will lead to the development of a detachment board. All those in favor? Any opposed? That is carried. Just to follow up, this is not going forward to the county council tomorrow because there is still one municipality that's meeting was after this. So it will not be going, this resolution will be going to the county for the July county council meeting. Minden Hills meeting is this Thursday and our county is Wednesday. So it's a huge project. And when we discussed it, it's just simply not possible for any one municipality to be doing that. We do need someone who's skilled and expert in being able to write such a thing. So we'll move on to Harvest Haliburton. So Councillor Clark, that's you as well.
Yeah, we had a meeting last week on the 16th, actually, which was the same day that they had the opening of the farmers market in Haliburton Village. So that was the first of the year. That opened under some of the new protocols. I think there's still some twists and turns being developed to make things smooth, but they are working away at it. So a good part of our meeting was kind of discussing what's been happening with the farmers markets, both within Haliburton County and also areas like Peterborough. The other area of discussion was around food security and food net. Kate Hall has been driving a lot of that or managing a lot of that on behalf of the county, which is great. And also as part of that is the work that Search has been doing. Search has been doing a lot of frozen meals for distribution to elders or those who are not able to get out. They had received a grant of an additional $2,500 toward making those meals or making that program happen. So that is very important. Tom Lambert also provided some insights on what they're trying to do around the planning to get I guess food sales, restaurants, the whole visitor piece back on the radar again. So this is all part of the planning that is looked at by the Harvest Haliburton group. So anyway, we're continuing to meet on a monthly basis and trying to address what we can to deal with food security, food production in the county. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's such I was on Harvest Haliburton. It's a great organization and they do an awful lot. So thanks for that. Source protection planning.
There was a recent meeting, however, I had a conflict, so didn't participate, but I'm just waiting for the minutes to come out and then I'll be able to report at a later date.
Okay. And then the Upper Trent Water Management Partnership Council.
No meeting, no.
No meeting. Fair enough. And same thing with the Haliburton Village Bioenergy Corporation, no meeting on that. So next we will bring in the Director of Planning and probably Chris as well. So just give a sec while they come up and we'll go to our first planning item. So welcome, gentlemen. So Jeff, I'll turn this over to you for the 5.1, item 1A1.
Thank you and good morning, everybody. I'm actually going to turn this one over to Chris. The first item is actually just the bylaw that was discussed at the public meeting this morning. And I believe you have a resolution that can pass that to make a decision on that bylaw, unless Chris has something else to add.
No, I don't think I have anything really else to add to the application that was heard this morning. So the resolution can be read.
Sure. I did have one question, not about this, but because we've changed the format of including the public portion in an example where, like, we're passing it literally minutes after we had the public meeting. So in an example where we had lots of questions, comments from the public, where they still needed some answers if someone was concerned, you know, if it was a different type of application, another condo or like something, this would not come this quickly necessarily. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, well, it depends. So yeah, each application will be a little bit different depending on how many public meetings are required for each application. But the process that we had this morning is going to be similar to each month going forward, whereas we have the public meeting in the morning and then we go back into the regular council to pass the bylaws. So it may be if we have 4 applications at the public meeting and they're already the bylaws are all ready to be passed, at the beginning of the planning portion of council, we can just pass those 4 bylaws right away.
We'll cross that bridge when we get to some files that have more comments from the public. So I do need a mover and a seconder for this. Oh, sorry, Chris, yeah?
I just wanted to add too that if it is something that where council needs further information, they can just defer an application to a further date and then be able to wait for that information to come in if it is something that council requires further information on the application.
Good point. So always have the bylaws ready and we can defer. Okay, very good. A mover, please. Councillor Clark, Councillor McKechnie. Be it resolved that council approve the bylaw 2020-41 to amend bylaw 2005-120 for the lands of Lee, which consists of concession 11 and 12, part lot 5 in the geographic township of Guilford, Municipality of Dysart et al., which would change the zone on the subject land from waterfront residential type 6L to environmental protection and open space zone to waterfront residential type 3L, rural type 1L, environmental protection and open space zone, to be read a first, second, third time passed, signed, and the corporate seal attached thereto. All in favor? Any opposed? And that's carried. And next item.
Abbey Gardens Community Trust would like to change the use of the existing brewery located on their property to include a restaurant and patio. The proposed change of use will enable them to complement their beer by serving other types of alcoholic beverages and light meals. Seating will be provided for up to 30 people and include both indoor and outdoor seating. Additional food options may also be provided by refreshment vehicles approved by the health unit. The owners are requesting that council waive site plan control for this development. Section 5 of the site plan control bylaw provides council the flexibility to waive site plan control if it chooses. If council chooses to waive site plan control, staff do recommend a couple conditions. The Ministry of Environment is the approval authority for the septic system located on the property. So staff recommend that the applicant obtain approval from the Ministry of Environment to address septic capacity prior to development. The Ministry of Transportation, given that this is located on Highway 118, have also notified the municipality that they wish to be notified of all development on the subject lands. So staff recommend a condition that the applicants obtain approval from the MTO prior to development. The building department is going to review this project or this proposal to ensure compliance with the building code. And staff request direction from council with regards to waiving site plan control. I have provided a resolution and conditions for you. So if council decides to waive site plan control, those may be appropriate. Does council have any questions on this file?
Councillor Clark and then Councillor Smith.
I think given the current environment, and if this will speed up their ability to adapt or work with current requirements, I think it's important that we support this. We have to get our local businesses up and running and provide venue for people coming into the community, and this is one of the few options we've got.
Thank you. Councillor Smith?
Thank you. I'd echo Larry's comments, and I would be happy to move the draft resolution that Jeff referenced with the conditions that are noted there, the 4 of them. And I would, as I said, echo Larry's comments. This is a very important step for the Halliburton Highlands Brewery, not only with regard to what can be done on site, but this is an important step towards them securing what they call a tied house privilege, and that allows them to essentially provide their product at various special events throughout the community. And not having that privilege is a distinct competitive disadvantage for them right now. So anything we can do to help them expedite this. Out in the package here, there's already they have approval from the local health unit in terms of food safety and so forth. So it's a big and important step. Thank you.
You're welcome. I agree, but I also think it really isn't COVID-19 necessarily that I would think regardless of that, we would waive a site plan. We've done this for other instances in Industrial Park, on other areas where this is more of a change of use, and it's not like we're waiving site plan because they're building another large building. You're allowed to waive site plan when council deems it minor in nature, and the conditions listed here seem very fair and reasonable. So, so I did have a mover by Councillor Smith. I need a seconder. Deputy Kennedy. Be it resolved that council waives the requirement for the site plan approval with respect to a change of use to the existing brewery to include a restaurant and patio on the property of Abbey Gardens Community Trust in Lot 3, Concession 4, Township of Guildford. Development is to be located as shown on the site plan provided and is subject to the following conditions. Number 1, the applicant is to obtain necessary approvals from the Ministry of Transportation. 2, the applicant is to obtain necessary approvals from the Ministry of Environment, Conservation and Parks. Number 3, plumbing is to be removed from the storage shed. And number 4, the applicant is to pay the application fee in the amount of $200. All those in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none, that's carried. Thank you. Next, item 3.
Thank you. Merleberry Company Limited are in the process of selling their property located on the Canisius River and are requesting permission from council to cross a 1-foot reserve identified as Block H on Plan 585 to ensure legal access to their property. Staff have included the 2 adjacent properties in this permission as well. The 2 adjacent properties also use this existing driveway to obtain access. Permission from council will recognize the location of the existing driveway. Staff recommend that council pass the following resolution.
Just curious, because I was around when these lots were created. How come we didn't do that when the lots were created?
It must have been overlooked at the time. At the time, there was also a consent application that granted a right-of-way to those properties, and at that time, it was overlooked that that 1-foot reserve existed. So the request before council today is just to legalize access for the existing right-of-way.
And that it affects all 3 lots, so they don't ever have to come back.
Correct.
Excellent. Okay, any questions from other councillors? Mover? Councillor Smith, seconder Councillor Clark. Be it resolved that council recognizes the location of the existing private driveway off the road allowance for North Canisius Drive, Plan 585, which has been authorized by entrance permit P11-EN-061033 and grants permission for the said private driveway to cross the 1-foot reserve identified as Block H on Plan 585. All those in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none, that is carried. And item 4.
This item is a similar request for council. Ms. Morton and Mr. Bastianon are in the process of selling their property on Drag Lake at 2016 Blueberry Trail and are requesting permission from council to cross a 1-foot reserve adjacent to Harris Drive as shown on Plan 621. Permission from council will recognize the location of an existing driveway. Staff recommend that council pass the following resolution.
Any questions for staff on this one? Something? No. Mover, please. Councillor Wood Roberts, and the seconder, Councillor Smith. Be it resolved that council recognizes the location of the existing private driveway at 2016 Blueberry Drive and grants permission for the said private driveway to cross the 1-foot reserve shown on Plan 621 at the location shown on the attached plan. All those in favor? Any opposed? That's carried. And then item 5.
Bylaw 2020-42 is a bylaw to close and convey a portion of an original road allowance as well as an original shore road allowance located on Redstone Lake. Council reviewed a draft bylaw at their meeting on May 5th, 2020. Staff have received the deposited plans now and have completed the bylaw. The notice and circulation requirements are complete and no specific concerns have been identified. Staff recommend council pass bylaw 2020-42. Do you have any questions?
Councillor Clark?
Yeah, thanks for this. Yes, my concern is this looks to be, township owned right away to access Redstone Lake. Is there any evidence of any of the neighbors or other people using that piece of property to access the lake?
No. So Boyce Bradley is a privately maintained road. So members of the public, other than people who have the right to use Boyce Bradley, are not able to use that road allowance. In addition, this is, I believe, the 4th time this has been to council. And the original time that they submitted their proposal, they had shown that there was a boat launch just up the road, a municipally maintained boat launch. So there is alternative access options available to Redstone Lake. So I hope that answers your question, Larry.
Yeah, one more quick one, Jeff. Was there any kind of a circular to the neighbors advising that this is going to be conveyed to private ownership? And any kind of responses from neighbors?
We did not receive any responses, but yes, circulation and notice was provided. When we close an original road allowance, we're also required to put it in the newspaper for 2 consecutive weeks, which was done before council viewed the draft bylaw in May.
Thanks, Jeff.
Hey, Councillor McKechnie, did you have a question?
Yes. I've been on the property. I've walked it. It's very steep and very rocky. So be no use to the public at all.
Okay, thanks, Walt.
Okay, Councillor Smith?
Quick question for Jeff also on this one. The map shows Redstone Lake there with water access only for this area. And I was curious is that just a legacy before the Boyce Bradley Road went in, or?
Let me just have a quick look at the map here, John. Generally on maps, what that is there are existing water access streets as per the 911 civic addressing program at the County of Haliburton. We generally turn that imaginary street off in our mapping, but it still labels the street name. So there likely are water access only properties in the vicinity. But this property does have access via Boyce Bradley Road.
Okay, there's no further questions. I do need a mover and seconder, please. Councillor McKechnie, Councillor Clark. Be it resolved that bylaw 2020-42, which is a bylaw to stop up, close, and convey a portion of the original shore road allowance in between concessions 12 and 13 in lots 28 and 29, and part of the original shore road allowance in front of lot 28, concession 12, and part of the original shore road allowance in front of the original allowance for road between concession 12, 13, be read a first, second, and third time, passed, signed, and the corporate seal attached thereto. All those in favor? Any opposed? Carried. They're tongue twisters. Okay, keep going, keep rolling.
The next application is a road closing application in Harcourt Park.
Oh,
I believe there was a conflict of interest here, so let me know when it's safe to proceed.
Thank you. Paying attention. And Councillor Donaldson is muted and is off the screen. Okay, thank you very much for reminding me that. Continue.
Thank you. A joint application has been submitted by Harcourt Park Incorporated. The tenants are Sexton to purchase the shore road allowance in front of their 2 adjacent properties on East Lake, as well as an original allowance for a road that bisects these properties. Mr. and Mrs. Sexton used the properties as one, and the 2 lots will be merged during this application process. The cottage was constructed in 1967 with a building permit, and its location is recognized pursuant to section 3.2.7 of the official plan. However, there is a shed located on the shore road allowance. There is no record of a building permit or assessment records for this shed, and staff recommend that the shed be removed or brought into compliance with the zoning bylaw. Staff requests direction with regards to the shed and approval to process the application from council. Do you have any questions for me?
Any questions from councillors? No, it's a Harcourt Park's a unique situation where they own the land and the land is leased and people own the cottages. So that's why it's Harcourt Park Incorporated whenever we see something in this area. So I'll ask for a mover and a seconder. Deputy Kennedy, and did I see another hand? I'm sorry. Councillor Clark. Do resolve that council approves for processing an application by Harcourt Park Incorporated to purchase a portion of the original allowance for the road between concessions 7 and 8 in lot 6 and part of the shore road allowance along the shore of East Lake in front of their property in lot 6, concessions 7 and 8. Further described, part lots 49 and 50 in the geographic township of Harcourt. Pursuant to section 3.2.7 of the official plan, the frame shed located on the shore road allowance is to be removed or moved into compliance with zoning bylaw 2005-120. These lands are declared surplus. All those in favor? And any opposed? And there are none, so that is carried. And we'll just give a sec to bring Councillor Donaldson back into the meeting. Okay, welcome back, Tammy. So now we move on to item 7.
Thank you. On May 26, Council passed bylaw 2020-35, which is the municipality's procedural bylaw. The following 2 bylaws proposed today and 2 resolutions will permit the Committee of Adjustment meetings to proceed remotely via electronic meetings. Bylaw 2020-44 is a bylaw to govern the calling, place, and proceedings of meetings for the Committee of Adjustment. The platform intended for electronic proceedings is similar to that for council meetings. The meetings will be held in an open public forum, be available online, and include the opportunity for applicants and agents and the public to participate, ask questions, and be fully aware of all discussions. The second bylaw, bylaw 2020-43, is a bylaw to constitute a Committee of Adjustment as per section 44(1) of the Planning Act. At the beginning of this term of council, council delegated its authority to make decisions on minor variances to the Committee of Adjustment via bylaw 2018-83. Bylaw 2020-42 and 43 proposed today will rescind and replace this bylaw. Staff recommend approval of both bylaws. As well, staff also recommend that the existing committee members continue to serve on the Committee of Adjustment. So there's 2 resolutions to appoint those committee members as well.
Okay.
Does anybody have any questions?
Yeah, questions from there? And so the members of the public are getting up to speed on how to participate electronically, and the 4 members of council take turns, I believe, 2 members at a time, or is it 1? I don't remember.
It's just one member at a time, and for the next 6 months, Councillor Smith will be the representative.
Excellent. Okay, that works well. And then if he can't attend, then he tells you and so on. Okay, so any questions on that? I'll ask. If not, I'll ask for a mover and seconder for the first resolution. Councillor Wood Roberts and Deputy Kennedy. Be it resolved that bylaw 2020-44, being a bylaw to govern the calling, place, and proceedings of a meeting for the Committee of Adjustment, be read a first, second, and third time, passed, signed, and the corporate seal attached thereto. All in favor? Any opposed? Carried. And the second bylaw, mover, please. Councillor Clark. I keep seeing his hand. It's hard to, I'm looking around. Anybody? Councillor McKechnie. Be it resolved that bylaw 2020-43, which is a bylaw to constitute, empower, and appoint a committee of adjustment and delegate its authority to make decisions on minor variances from any bylaw that implements an official plan, be read a first, second, and third time, passed, signed, and the corporate seal attached thereto. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. And lastly, from the planning department, although I have one other question before we finish this, but is to do with our updated zoning bylaws. So general review, Jeff. Oh, sorry, Mallory.
There's two other resolutions here that I don't think got included, and I think Jeff's probably waiting for them here. So if it's okay, I'll read them out and we'll call for a mover and a seconder. Does that work, Andrea?
That works for me because they're not in my pack.
Yeah, exactly. I've noticed that. So I'll let you call for the mover and the seconder and I'll read them out if that works.
First read it so they know what they're moving
Sure.
and seconding. Yeah, you can I'll look for a mover and seconder.
Sure. So be it resolved that the following members of the public are appointed to continue to sit as members of the Committee of Adjustment for the remaining term of council effective June 24th, 2020. Don Popple, David Bishop, and Jerry Walker.
Okay, for the resolution, I need a mover. Councillor Wood Roberts, seconder Councillor Smith. All those in favor? That's carried. No, none opposed. Okay, second resolution, Mallory.
Second one, be it resolved that the following members of council are appointed to continue to sit as members of the Committee of Adjustment for the remainder of the 2020 calendar year, effective June 24th, 2020. John Smith, Nancy Wood Roberts, Tammy Donaldson, and Walt McKechnie.
Okay, I need a mover. You can move even if you're on it. If you are. Councillor Clark, seconder. Councillor Smith. All those in favor? And that's carried. And you got the mover and seconder in there because I don't know.
I got it.
Very
Thank
good.
you.
Okay, thank you for that. I'm glad I saw your hand up. I'm like, what's she got her hand up for? Okay, now we'll turn it over to Jeff to talk about the zoning bylaw amendment. And
Thank
Chris.
you. Thank you. The last item on the planning agenda is the zoning bylaw general review. This item was last discussed at the council meeting in May, where council reviewed and agreed to a list of proposed amendments. Attached to this report is an updated list showing the previously reviewed amendments and new amendments being proposed today for council direction. This report will complete the background review, analysis, and issues identification portion of the review process. Once the public consultation process has been completed, a bylaw will proceed to council for a decision. The work plan attached to this report has been updated to show the status of the review. One change has been made to this timeline. The bylaw approval date has been changed to October 27th, 2020 to reflect the new alignment of public meetings being held within the regular council meeting. The website has been updated with a web page to outline the general review process and the status. It can be found on the Planning and Land Information page. The website will continue to be updated after each council meeting to reflect council direction and the status of the process. Attached to this report are proposed mapping and illustration updates. The maps show the proposed amendments to specific properties, and there is a new illustration being proposed that will clarify yard definitions. Again, mapping and illustrations are there just to help the public decipher the bylaw. The proposed changes to the map, I'm just going to outline some of the major changes. Staff are proposing the removal of section 9.3C of the bylaw, which will affect 674 properties. And I will discuss this a little bit later as we're going through the proposed amendment table. Road jurisdiction updates will affect 83 properties on the map. And lastly, there are changes requested by property owners to recognize existing legal non-conforming uses. There are 4 of these requests, and I have attached a general report to this on each request to this report. Before we go into the table today, I was just wondering if council had any questions for me.
Councillor Clark?
Jeff, I don't know if this belongs in the guide or not, but with the raft, being an old power squadron guy, my first concern is how far is that raft going to be from the shoreline or guideline to say that they can't have it out 200 yards where it would be a danger to a marine traffic at night. The second item I've got is with the yurts. I assume that there will be there are standards with regard to the building department in terms of putting the yurt in. In previous times we've seen yurts, often they are for some kind of remuneration. People are trying to set it up with I guess the hopes of being able to rent the thing out and make a few dollars. And I was glad you had the point in there that it's not supposed to be for monetary gain. But how's that enforced? Will that be probably through Carl's area? Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Larry. And I will explain those a little bit further for everybody watching today and attending as we go through the table. With regards to rafts and how far they can be located off the shoreline, similar to marine facilities, this isn't something that we've historically regulated. Anytime there are structures out into the water that affect boat traffic, the approval authority is going to be DFO or the MNR. So if it is interfering with boat traffic, there is somebody that they can call and make sure that that's cleaned up. With regards to yurts, yes, we have proposed them as private cabins only. Anything over 10 square meters will require a building permit. And given that we've included it in the definition for private cabins and that it must comply with all the provisions for private cabins, it can't be used for rent or monetary gain.
Thank you.
Jeff, at this time, do you want to go through? Because I also had questions on this raft issue.
Do you want to wait until we get to the raft, or you can ask right now if you'd like, Mayor?
Well, it's whatever order you want to take us through, I will wait. It's I defer to you how you want to take us through this process.
Well, it's up to you, but it may be beneficial to wait just so that everybody else can hear what's being proposed first, and then we can ask questions specific to that section.
Okay.
Thank you. So I am going to go through the table again, one by one. Feel free to ask any questions. If I don't see your hand or don't notice that you would like to ask a question, feel free to interrupt. You may wish to open the table that's provided and follow along. I've made a slight change from last month. As per the table, deletions are still highlighted in red and crossed out. Previously reviewed amendments are highlighted in green, and proposed amendments that are new for council direction today are highlighted in yellow. So looking at the table, scrolling down to the bottom of page 2, under definitions, section 2.127 for private cabins. Last month, council reviewed an updated definition for private cabins to clarify the intended use as overflow sleeping and accommodation. Proposed for you today is an updated definition to clarify that yurts are considered a private cabin and that tents are not considered a private cabin. Moving on to section 2.131, which is the definition for raft. The definition has been updated and is being proposed to clarify and regulate rafts as a permitted use. In section 3, we will have proposed provision for rafts as well. So I will read that definition, and I do look for council direction on this use. So the definition of raft being proposed is a seasonal and non-motorized floating accessory structure without any temporary or permanent cover, used for swimming and recreational purposes, that is attached to the ground below the high water mark and to no other ground, surrounded by water on all sides. A raft is not a marine facility. Did you want me to skip down to the general provisions for rafts, Mayor, and then we could discuss those questions?
I just curious why we would regulate anything that isn't in the lands. Like, I did not think that we had the ability to regulate stuff that's on the water.
We've always zoned our lakes and rivers. We actually have a lakes and rivers zone. The reason this is coming forward is we've always had a definition of raft within our bylaw. There are instances of rafts out in the public, but it was unclear based on the wording of the bylaw whether a raft was a permitted use or was not a permitted use. So this is one of the items today. I am looking for council direction as to whether council does want rafts in the municipality or does not want rafts in the municipality. And if they do, we can, any suggestions or further clarification to the provisions you have, we can go back and research that.
Councillor Clark?
I think it's important that we have the definition there. The reason I'm saying that is in other jurisdictions, I've seen situations where they've had a floating boathouse, and because they didn't have it attached to the shoreline, they're able to get away with a non-compliant type of a structure. So I think it's important that we have some kind of definition to prevent us getting into some situations. Thank you.
Mayor Kennedy?
I have a question, Jeff. This seems to define the conventional wooden structure that we are all familiar with. Does this also include, now we're seeing that these new products being sold, which are the very flat, thin mats that are secured to the bottom as well. Is that also considered a raft? And if so, is there a limit on how many of them are? I've noticed the wooden raft with accompanying these new types of flat water. I don't know what you call them, rafts, but they certainly don't fit within the provisions that I've seen. Sometimes dealing with the 7.5 meters from either side. Secondary question is, how is the 7.5 meters arrived at? Many of our lots are the old 100-foot lots. If you take 7.5 meters from either side, it doesn't leave much room as to actually where you can place a raft. So just clarification, please.
Good points. I call them like a lily pad, but I think that might be a manufacturer's name.
Yeah, and the definition of proposed could be perceived as incorporating those yellow lily pad rafts that you do see around. They are the floating structures. They don't have any temporary or permanent cover. They are attached to the ground. And just to clarify, the provisions below do say that only one raft is permitted per property. However, if two properties are sharing the use of a raft, then they can have one straddling the lot line. With regards to the proposed setback of 7.5 meters, I've taken that from the provisions for marine facilities and docks. So it's just to ensure that there's privacy for the neighboring property owners. I do understand with regards to smaller lots, 100 feet of frontage, that if you take 25 feet off of each side, it doesn't leave much room, but it does leave about 50 feet in the center of each lot to locate marine facilities and rafts, while protecting and preserving the privacy rights of neighboring property owners on each side. So that's the intent of it. If council wishes to alter those permitted proposed provisions, I'm happy to look at them.
Okay. Thank you.
So I think perhaps just review it, Jeff, because we don't want to get ourselves
Okay.
It seemed like a small thing, but a small raft, but it might end up, you know, as Councillor Clark pointed out, there's, you know, some issues in other municipalities where they have become a problem. Okay.
Certainly. So in addition to the definition that I read, the proposed provisions are where a raft is a permitted use in the lakes and river zone, despite any setback provision of this bylaw, it is also permitted in a minimum setback area and is permitted subject to the following requirements. Only one raft is permitted per lot. A raft must be at least 2 meters from the high water mark and cannot be attached to or within 2 meters of any structure. Despite any setback provisions of the bylaw, a raft shall be located no closer than 7.5 meters to a side lot line that is not a shoreline, or to a line projected into the water from the intersection of the side lot line and the front lot line, where the projected line is perpendicular to a line tangent to the front lot line at that intersection. I understand that that's a very convoluted definition, and we do have illustrations to help the public and staff interpret that setback. However, if a raft serves 2 abutting lots, it may straddle or abut the lot line between the 2 lots. And lastly, a raft shall not exceed 10 square meters. So again, just over 100 square feet is the maximum floor area. And further to your question, Mayor, with regards to not zoning the water, the MNR does and DFO still do have authority over certain structures in the water, and all proposed structures will have to comply with all laws.
Okay, thank you on that. Okay, so I'll keep rolling, Jeff. And
okay, let me just scroll back up. So we're looking now at the definition for urban agriculture. Last month, Council reviewed a definition and provisions for urban agriculture. Further clarification of the definition is proposed to incorporate recommendations from Harvest Halliburton. The proposed update includes beehives, aquaculture, agroforestry, hydroponics, and aquaponics. Next is section 2.182, which is the definition for water body. Staff have received public concerns of instances where human-made ponds have created minimum water setbacks that prevent development on neighboring properties. The proposed definition for water body states that human-made recreational ponds that have no inlet or outlet water bodies are not considered a water body, and therefore a minimum water setback does not apply.
excellent.
Does that make sense to everybody?
Yeah.
Okay.
Very good. Any questions on that? I'm sorry, I'm half looking down, so if I don't see Jeff and I'll work together to see if there's questions from councillors. I'm reading over here too. Okay, carry on, Jeff.
Moving on to a definition of yurt. As per council direction, a definition of yurt is being proposed today. If approved, yurts will be permitted in the rural residential and rural zones only. The proposed definition of a yurt is a circular domed accessory building not attached to a dwelling, used as a private cabin and complying with the provisions for private cabins, that is portable and self-sufficient, usually consisting of a wooden frame covered by a felt or canvas top. And again, at the bottom, this is the provisions comply with private cabins. So it's accessory to a main use. It will only be in the rural zones and it can't be used for monetary gain. Does that satisfy council's direction with regards to yurts?
I see nods. Yeah, I believe so.
Okay, moving on to page 5 under the general provisions portion of the bylaw, section 3.1b. I've clarified the provisions for decks permitted within setbacks. The proposal is to remove the reference to interior side lot line setback that was proposed last month. And this is for the purpose that both interior and exterior side lot line setbacks apply to decks located within setbacks. Also proposed in this section is for inclined elevators to be permitted within the minimum setback area. John Weinstein, owner of Inclined Elevations, has submitted the attached proposal for council with his position as to why inclined elevators should be permitted within the minimum water setback. Staff seek direction from council on this proposal. Specifically, does council wish to proceed to permit inclined elevator lifts within the water setback?
Okay, so we do need to take questions from that. And Jeff, just to update for all the council to know, there was a minor variance application received that was approved. But it was done, that could still be held. We could take this out and continue to suggest it go through the minor variance committee. So it's based on a case by case, or to permit in specific areas. So Councillor Clark, you had your hand.
Yeah, this is an item that's actually across a number of the townships in the county. We've got a lot of properties here that are very challenged in terms of getting from where the business building site is to where the water frontage is. These are very well engineered. The idea that the marine railway pieces or elevator lift are very well engineered pieces, and really they are as an access tool for the property. So I really think we have to support this type of facility if we're expecting people to have proper or unimpeded access to their waterfronts. Thank you.
Was there another hand up? No. So just to be clear, if we did include the inclined elevators and had it as part of our zoning, then an application does not need to go through a minor variance, but do they still need a building permit even though it's not a structure? Like, how would we know? How do we regulate it if we permit it in the zoning bylaw?
Those are good questions, Mayor, and I don't have all the answers. I do not believe they require a building permit, you're correct. We did receive a minor variance application for one located on Drag Lake a few years ago, and I'm not even sure it had to be approved by the fire department. So staff have concerns with this proposal, and obviously seek council direction. But one of the primary objectives of our official plan is natural looking shorelines. Staff have concerns. I think that inclined elevators should be considered on a case-by-case basis, just to ensure that there's enough screening and that it doesn't, the shorelines don't become littered with track-like structures. But I obviously seek direction from council on this matter and whether to proceed to the public consultation portion of this process with this proposal.
The benefit, I know there was a cost to the applicant, but the benefit of it going through that minor variance process was that the applicant had to prove the engineering from the company that they used. So, you know, someone could say, I've got an inclined elevator and I know how to build one myself. I don't know. I do have reservations of including it in our zoning, and I would personally prefer to see it be on a case by case and as a minor variance, but I believe Councillor Clark had his hand up.
Yeah, but a couple of good points that Jeff has raised there, and I think, you know, perhaps maybe through the building code, there could be some kind of standards. For sure, there's got to be standards, or there's going to be liability issues if there's anything happens. And again, to Jeff's point, we want to maintain naturalized or natural-looking shorelines. I think perhaps, yeah, you're right. I think there has to be some method to prove that this is necessary or is required for access to a waterfront, that it just doesn't become a standard feature. I agree with that point. Thank you.
Yeah.
And just to clarify a couple points, if the inclined elevator does not encroach into the water setback, then the variance is not required, and then they can construct them. But further to your point, Larry, the benefit of going through the minor variance process is that we can impose conditions just to make sure it is well screened, and what other conditions that are deemed necessary through that review process.
Councillor McKechnie?
Yes. I think there's a lot of properties that that need this, and the one out at Drag Lake, I was out there a few times with council, and it is really well done. I bet you if you're out in a boat in the lake, you can hardly see it. Like anybody who's got the money to spend on that, they're not going to have some big gaudy looking structure in front of their cottage. So I think we have to give the landowners some common sense. They put one in, it's going to be done right. So nobody's going to see it.
So with that being said, I'm not saying I'm opposed to them. I'm saying that I would prefer them still to go through the minor variance process so that it's done on a case by case. So whether our fire department or other roads department, whichever, have comments. But my concern with opening it up to having it in the in our zoning bylaw is that there'll be proliferation of them instead of alternate ways to get to the water. But I think Councillor Smith had a question also.
Thank you. So Jeff, there's a public meeting process that you've got coming up. And, you know, if you had this in here, would that not be an opportunity for persons who have an interest, like associations and so forth, to provide some input on this?
Yes, great question, and that's correct. So if council agrees to proceed with it today to the public consultation portion, it does open it up to the public, and you are not approving it today for inclusion in the bylaw. It will go through the open house where lake associations can comment on it, and it will go through the public meeting process where the public as well can comment onto the pros and cons of these. So it doesn't hurt to keep it in the process for now and see what the public thinks.
I personally support that, keeping it in the process so that we can draw some public input. Certainly there are advantages and disadvantages, but you know, we're going to have at some point, you know, county council is going to deal with the shoreline bylaw. There will be restrictions there in terms of how much development. You can't put one of these things in without taking down some trees if they're, you know, in that area, but you've got your width in terms of the, you know, the 5 meters that's proposed in the current draft. If this can fit within that, it ought to be permitted. And, you know, to Walt's point, these things, and particularly if we force them to come forward as a minor variance, those people who are doing it right will come forward and go through that process. Meanwhile, the individual who's thinking of constructing it themselves and putting, you know, an albatross on the waterfront, like some of the other structures that get put up in violation of our current regulations, I'm not sure that you know, process really accomplishes anything. So I'd at least like to see this stay in place, you know, through the public hearing process and get some input so we can get a broader perspective. Thank you very much.
No, excellent points. I agree. Actually, now that I follow through, and let's see what the public and lake associations have to say. So it's better to keep it in. It doesn't mean that it stays in. Gives us pause. But if it's not in, then it's not open for this is our decision to make it public. Okay, so I think we're good on that. Keep going, Jeff, if you don't mind.
Okay, I'm gonna skip the provisions for wraps as we've already discussed those. So we're moving way down to page 13 under residential zones. So in addition to the definition outlined above, yurts are being proposed as permitted uses in the rural residential zone. Also proposed is the removal of Note A, shown on the left side of the table. Note A requires converted dwellings, which are basement apartments and the like, to be serviced by sanitary sewer systems in the R1, R2, and R3 zones. The proposed change is consistent with the official plan. Secondary dwelling units, which require converted dwellings to be located in villages and hamlets, but do not require them to have municipal sewer connection. So that's what's being proposed.
Okay.
Moving on to section 9, rural zones. Note A permits private cabins, which are permitted as a principal residential use, only if no sewage facilities are connected and subject to a 30-meter setback from an improved street. The proposed amendment is to permit the option for these private cabins to have individual on-site sewage systems. So we would be the original intent of these private cabins was for hunting camps. And the original provision said that they could not have sewage systems and that they were to use outhouses. Staff feel that provision may be a bit dated and are proposing that section be removed. Also proposed is to add yurts as a permitted use in all rural zones. Is there any comments on this section? Okay, moving on. The next proposal is for section 9 to be amended to remove section 9.3C, which is difficult to explain to property owners, and it creates confusion internally and externally with regards to the applicable zone provisions. So what section 9.3 was designed to do was, when a lot was created by consent, it said that the rural residential zone provisions applied. Even though the property was zoned RU1, it actually was the provisions in section 5 that applied. So it was very confusing. So removing section 9.3C will change the zoning designation for 674 properties. So it is a big change. All properties currently zoned with 9.3C will be rezoned to rural residential -5. The RR5 zone has the exact same permitted uses and the exact same provisions, such as setbacks, number of accessory buildings and the like. So there should be no impact on property owners. The designations will be updated on the zone schedules to reflect this change. Does council have any questions about this change? It's a big one, but it really should have no impact.
I don't see any questions.
Okay.
I saw thumbs up. Okay.
Okay, and lastly on page 17 is the section for environmental zones, where our rafts are proposed as a permitted use in the lakes and river zone. I know council still hasn't really provided any direction to me. But again, is this something you want to go through the public consultation process and see what the public feedback is for rafts?
Nods of yes. Same rationale.
Excellent. Okay. Well, thank you for your patience. Is there any other items that you wish to discuss further before we move along?
Further. We're going to be taking a break after this.
I know. Thank you for bearing with me. I know these are long reports.
Yeah. So any other questions to Jeff? I would like to just go back to the table at the very beginning, which is the time frame and our guideline. And we talked about, I know everybody's getting used to Zoom meetings, or we're trying to get used to these meetings, but the statutory open house on August 14th, 2020, Jeff, we had talked about possibly this council chamber, we could have 10 people, but we actually talked about possibly renting a venue across the street, which is accessible, and we could easily be distanced so that the maps are properly put up. So I don't know if you looked into that for the August 14th open house, of having it so people could physically attend.
I have not looked into that yet, Mayor, and I've just made note, and I will call after the meeting.
I mean, maybe they're not taking bookings, but it is important. And I know that I'm just looking, going back to your timeline. So we would review and approve the draft zoning bylaw amendment at our July meeting. So then the draft is out there for public comment. I know that a lot of the lake associations will be, chomping at the bit, and the Harvest Halliburtons and the other community organizations, which are great to follow these things. But so obviously written comment is always well received, and we've had that in the past, but there's still an element of being able to host that physical open house. So if you can look into that, I think that would be well worth it.
Yes, I will look into.
or if there's a possibility with Tamara and how we handle people coming in here. The idea of a bigger venue is you could do that traffic flow, like with the directional arrows. This is the way you go. And Tamara, what are you thinking?
Just my understanding currently, if we're looking, it sounds like they're looking to the end of July still to push things out. And if we still have a limit of 10 people inside, that's not going to be practical regardless of the size of the room. So we have to consider that as well as and keep monitoring that as we move forward. But I think Jeff's going to have to make plans sooner rather than later. So technology may be your way to go, not knowing what's going to happen.
Yes, staff have been planning and preparing for the possibility that it could be a virtual meeting. One of the things it's going to help this is we have been posting all the documents and the current status of all approvals to our website. So we can direct anybody that has any curiosity as to what's being proposed. They can go to the Planning and Land Information page. You will see a link to the zoning bylaw review. It has all the maps, all the illustrations. It'll have all the proposed amendments. It has links to the public participation guide for electronic meetings, as well as other planning documents such as the provincial policy statement, official plans, existing zoning bylaws. So it's kind of a one-stop shop where everybody can go and take a look. If we do proceed through a virtual public meeting, it's again, we'll have to have everybody who wants to participate or present to pre-register. And generally those are lake associations and local stakeholder groups who have proposed amendments to the bylaw. So we can proceed this way. And just one other note, just to clarify that after today, yes, a draft bylaw is proposed to come to the council meeting in July.
Yes, excellent.
And staff will be requesting direction to go into the public consultation portion of this review process.
Okay, Mallory?
I have an amended resolution because staff were looking for direction. If
Yes.
you'd like me to read it. Okay.
You read it and I'll get a mover and a seconder.
Perfect. Be it resolved that council acknowledges receipt of the proposed amendments and updates to the zoning bylaw, and further that council directs staff to incorporate the proposed amendments and updates as written in the draft zoning bylaw to be brought forward to July 28th council meeting for review.
Mover, please. Councillor Clark, Councillor Smith. And that was read. So we have mover second. All those in favor? Any opposed? I think so. And that is passed. We could quickly do the fire. And I think Mike Isles is waiting in the wings there. And then we will take a break. I think we will do that, okay? That way Mike can get on. So Mike, if you will bring Mike Isles into the meeting, and then we'll be taking a break after fire. And where is Mike Isles? Well, we could also just take a break now. Oh, we just brought him in.
There he is.
Because I don't do anything. There's lots of clicking and things happening over there. I'm very impressed with all the IT people, and people who didn't think they were IT people are becoming IT people. So they're learning. They're doing a great job over here, and we see Mike. So we'll do fire. Welcome, Mike.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Typical straightforward report, I think. We have been doing a few inspections, some public education, a little bit of WebEx training. Our general training, we are in the process of restarting it, both the weekly training and the recruit training. So we're in that process. And emergency management moves forward, weekly meetings, and there always seems to be a new hot topic to discuss. So very good information and very good discussion that's required.
Absolutely. So any questions or comments to Mike about his report or anything else? One thing I noticed is the medical assists are up, and I also know I was out walking early Sunday morning and saw someone who was a volunteer firefighter, and I said, "You guys were busy yesterday." And he said 5 calls on Saturday, I believe, just this last Saturday. So I think although this is June's report, or May's report, I would say June is probably looking as busy.
Presently, we've already matched last month. Yeah, Saturday was very busy. We went probably 12 or 14 hours.
Wow, that's a lot for a volunteer department on one day. That is incredible. In terms of the medical assists, I know that there's talk. It's forever talking. Deputy Mayor Kennedy, you're familiar with this, with how the dispatch gets called in and how the questions that are the dispatch are asked might change, and also changes in what paramedics are able to do. Do you think that will lessen our medical assist calls, or do you think it's just will continue to have to be called out as well?
If I make a comment, the MPDS system is the one you're referring to. It's been used
Yes.
By Toronto and now more recently by Niagara Falls. It's been a recommendation by the Ontario Association of Paramedic Chiefs for probably 10 years to move towards that, at least. And it's definitely proven that there's less what they call code 4 responses, which triggers our volunteer fire department first responses. That and a little adjustment probably in the agreements might be help. I know there was some adjustments made a few years ago, Chief, and I was hoping that we might have seen better results and lessening the impact on your volunteers. But yes, if we get the new system in place, I believe it will help quite a bit.
Mike, did you want to make any comment on that, or it was just my observation? And
yeah, to me, any adjustments temporary. Call volume, our population's going up, our call volume is going to go up. So certainly we can mitigate some calls today maybe, but it's still got to be a long-term process, because like I say, our call volume goes up by 3 or 4% every year, and I don't see that ever changing. So.
Okay, Councillor Clark?
Mike, is there any kind of a pattern in terms of the medical assist requests that are being made? Like, are they, people working outdoors, or is it seniors, or is it, heart attacks, or?
My feeling right now, it seems to be more serious calls. If anything, the calls we're responding to now were probably required more so than ever. Hand in hand with the COVID, I think a lot of people aren't going to the hospital. So when they are wanting to go to the hospital, so when they finally call, usually it appears to be a little more dire, but that's also short term. You pretty well have to look at any of this as a full year set of statistics.
Thanks,
Okay,
Mike.
well, thank you, Mike. And I do have a resolution to acknowledge the receipt of the fire department report, so I need a mover and a seconder for that. Councillor Wood Roberts, Councillor McKechnie. Be it resolved, the council acknowledges receipt of the May 2020 fire department report. All those in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none, that is carried. So at this time, we will take a 15-minute break. So councillors just pause while they close the meeting, and we will reconvene at 5 to 11, 10:55. Thank you. Welcome back, everyone. I am now unmuted from our break, and we'll continue on in the order of the agenda. So the next section is Public Works. So we need to bring in Rob Camelon. Bringing him up. And John, our new environmental manager. Okay, welcome. You just unmute. And so we will start with the June Public Works status update. Welcome, Rob.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Try and be short and sweet with this. This first document is always a moving target. This month is no exception. We have 1, 2, 3, 4 construction crews in the area right now, so we're kind of chasing them around. And with the budget update that we have for next month, I fully anticipate the bulk of our construction will be complete by the middle of July, with the exception of the Coleman Lake Bridge and a very small portion of our resurfacing. One thing I do want to also make note of is the drainage study that was approved as part of the budget. It is underway. The field work has been completed, and I expect something to present to council possibly September. That is for the Victoria Street and Maple Ave intersection, in particular, that storm system. The detailed condition survey for the Drag River Bridge, we did have a pre-start meeting on that, and the field work is scheduled for July 8th and 9th. So it does avoid a Friday, it does avoid a Tuesday, which is kind of what our goal was in the center of town. The mechanical brushing tender has been completed. So we didn't go out on a limb. There was some uncertainty with that tender because it was a much different process than we had done in the past. It was a company we had never used before. So there was some hesitance on staff's part, but by and large, it did go very well. The staff that I've talked to, in particular, our operations manager, excuse me, was pretty impressed with the work they did. I hadn't seen everything they've done, but from what I had seen is they really did step up on this particular project for us. So
that's excellent.
Yeah. Was there any questions from council at this point? Having said that, the resurfacing that you have in front of you, much of that is out of date now. A lot has changed in the last week. As I said, most of it should be done by the middle of July.
So questions from councillors to Rob regarding anything up to that point? It's a very handy chart halfway, if you just finish a council meeting and then you get asked something from someone in your ward, you can sort of look to this and see where things are happening. And yes, there's road construction everywhere between Dysart and the county. There's lots of road crews. Councillor McKechnie, you've got your hand up. Unmute. Just don't forget to unmute, Walt. There you go. Start again.
Yeah, I said, Rob, I'm just wondering where we're at with Dignan there in regard to resurfacing after that large culvert was put in.
There is nothing approved in the budget for Dignan this year. It was brought forward as one of the 4 considerations, as well as Bitter Lake. And I think there's a couple other ones, pavement preservation in the center of town. There was money a couple years ago for that road. We deferred the resurfacing because of the failed culvert halfway through. We changed the culvert with municipal forces. I would have to go back and check the final number. I think it came in around 50,000 with our forces. And I believe there was about 130,000 in there originally. So there is some money left in that account. It would not cover all the resurfacing. It could go towards it. Off the top of my head, I think whatever's left in that account would pay for maybe half of that project, for the resurfacing project.
But I thought that after the culvert was fixed, that it was going to be, not resurfaced the next day, but it was going to be put in the plans to get resurfaced because it was up for scheduling years ago.
Yes, I say there was money set aside a couple years ago, but because of the culvert, that money largely went towards the culvert replacement. As I said, there is money left in that account. I couldn't tell you how much at this point. I want to say it's about 80,000, but we could certainly look at that. Regardless, the 80,000 would not pay for the resurfacing. It could certainly go towards the project. It wouldn't cover the project.
So to Councillor McKechnie's question, and also if all councillors recall that when we adopted our budget for 2020, there was, I believe, and Barbara, you can correct me, or Rob, $200,000 unallocated that we would do to roads construction, not either to spend in this year or so that there was sort of we didn't allocate that 200,000 that is in our budget. One of the things that I think where this can come up is at our next council meeting in July, we're going to be doing a full, as best as crystal ball as we can, projection of how COVID-19 has affected the municipal financial picture. And so it'll be at a 6-month review and as projected to December 2020. So that's one of the things we can, there may be an opportunity to do road resurfacing still on Dignan or other projects. But we may have to wait and see how big the hit is to our revenue side and make that decision. And that's why all department heads are being asked to look at how COVID-19 has affected their
yeah, and one thing I can add, Madam Mayor, is we were very, very fortunate this year. The spring was relatively kind to us compared to what we're used to. And we were able to start construction in April, which is very rare for us. It's not unheard of, but it's very rare. I believe that's the second time since I've been here that we were able to start in April. So as of today, I think there will be some capacity with our own forces to take on more work if it's approved. We will certainly know more next month. But say with construction being completed by the middle of July or thereabouts, it does free up our forces earlier than normal.
Councillor McKechnie?
Yeah, there's one more question. Sorry, and I just have to ask because I'm getting quite a few calls in regard to the roads dusting. So much dust, it's been so dry. Just wondering if they're going to be getting out there at all.
Yes, the dust suppressant the program has started. I would have to follow up with Jeff if you have any particular complaints, but I know they've been spraying for a few weeks now, if not longer.
Okay, I'll get back to you after then.
Okay.
Okay,
Thank
so
you.
Rob, you can keep going. There's other sections.
Yeah, moving on. So again, very similar to the first report. This is just something from the maintenance side of things. Just so happens a lot of their resources are tied up with construction right now, but they are carrying on with pothole patching and say dust suppressant is in there as well. The next item, the please slow down signs. Madam Mayor, feel free if you want to hop in here as well. But
yeah, so what we'll just do, is there any questions? Because also in your public work, you update is just things at wastewater treatment to waste disposal. So let's just stay on public works updates, because I think there's some other things. Does anyone have any questions on the wastewater treatment section or the waste disposal sites? No questions? Okay, just double checking. And then okay, so I do have a resolution to receive the public works update. So let's just do that while we're there. Mover, please. Councillor Wood Roberts, seconder Deputy Mayor Kennedy. Be it resolved that Council acknowledges receipt of the June 2020 Public Works Update Report. All in favor? Okay, that's carried. Thank you. Okay, so now we'll move on to the, well, we had the roads department update. You were just getting a little ahead and pitching and paving.
Yeah, there's some overlap between the two reports.
Yes, there is, and roadside brushing. It's interesting. We have one email saying we aren't doing enough brushing and we can't see to pass a safe corner. Then we receive another email says, love that you're not, or I guess it's the more the mowing, if you will, but because milkweeds are growing and we like it natural. So we're trying to find a happy medium. Anyway, there is another resolution on this to receive the roads department update. So mover, please. Councillor McKechnie, Councillor Smith. Be it resolved, the council acknowledges receipt of the June 2020 roads department update. All in favor? Carried. Okay, so now to the sign, the slow down sign, and we don't have an actual written report in there, but in a sample of the sign, I'll speak a bit to it, and then maybe Councillor Kennedy or McKechnie join in. We've received last month through Paul Carey and also Glenn Scott, who's the president of the Haliburton Lake Owner Cottage Association, to have some kind of signage up in that area to help sort of a friendly neighborhood sign. These are non-regulatory signs that they worked on creating this design. They had some suggestion for some other signs, which were, we felt more regulatory, like talking about a hidden driveway or that type of thing. And so really at this point going forward, we're just looking at doing this style of sign. And I believe working with the roads department as to where the location would be. And the cost, so I'm not sure who's covering all of the cost of these signs. So Rob, do you want to speak, and then we'll go to the councillors?
Yeah, sure. This was a follow-up to a topic we discussed last month, excessive speeds on municipal roads, which you know, we're dealing with as part of our traffic count study. This sign, the way I look at it, is more of a PSA, a public service announcement sign. As you said, it's non-regulatory, it's not enforceable. However, I don't think they're terrible ideas when they're used in this fashion. They're simple, they get the point across. It's not unlike signs that council approved, I'm going to say 6 years ago, more for a cottage watch type of program, you know, a very similar PSA type of sign. I want to be very, very cautious that we don't flood our roadway with signs. I think we want to limit the number that we do approve. We certainly want to be in touch with the outside staff as far as locations, so they don't, you know, they don't interfere with snow plowing and that type of thing. As far as cost, it's my understanding that municipality will not be paying for the manufacturing of the signs, but we will be providing some old signposts or signposts of that matter to put the signs up.
So we'll we'll do the installation, and we'll do the sign posts that they're covering the cost of the actual sign. And they still have reflectivity though, do they not? Are they visible?
It doesn't indicate in here, even if there should be some degree of reflectivity. We don't need the high intensity that we have on our road signs, right. But we have to make sure that there's some sort of engineering background on it so it can be seen at night.
Okay. Councillor McKechnie, do you want to add something to this and how we've worked with that area up there to?
Yeah, I think the signs are being covered. The cost of the signs are being covered by the associations up there, FURE and Haliburton Lake Association. Paul Carey, he's just waiting for approval from us so they can order the signs hopefully today, and also for us to set up a time to go up there and Rob or Jeff or whoever to tell them where to put the signs. And they just want to get them up. They'd like to get them up before the long weekend if they could. But everything is time, of course. But they are definitely picking up the cost of the signs, and they're getting them through Vista Signs here in Haliburton.
Deputy Mayor Kennedy, did you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, this Councillor McCartney brought this concern forward from one of his constituents, and so we sat down and had a chat about. We know we have the traffic control counts going. We know we have issues with trying to put signage up that conflicts with the Highway Traffic Act. So what we thought was, and then actually a comment that Rob had made when we were talking to him, was that a lot of these roads are dead-end roads and that they're actually just neighbors that are driving for the most part. So we came up with a solution, an idea, maybe a public service announcement that would do an interim before we get the new traffic counts and move forward with any speed initiatives we're doing municipal wide. but it's just to do something here, just to say, neighbors, slow down. So that's how it started, and I'm glad to see that the associations have sort of run with it and have come up with a solution that will work almost anywhere if so desired. So it is just an interim project as we continue to make improvements to our roads, which a lot of people don't think we're doing fast enough. Then the speeds, unfortunately, are coming up as well. So it's something that a growing concern. We're hearing about speeding on almost all of our roads anymore, it seems. So anyways, it's any effort to slow them down and stop a tragedy is good. Thank you.
That's great. And I really like the signs. I really like how simple and clear they are. And as you said, they could be used pretty much in any, so if another section of road, or we also had a request on Wigamog Road, if there's somebody that we're willing to work with, groups, organizations, it does help when it comes from an organization. So I think, at the bottom, it shows that we're participating in it, and then the 2 other associations. So all that could be easily changed. So I think this is a great thing, and in speeding in general, it is an issue throughout our municipality, but it is not unique to our municipality. It's an issue that happens in and around. So it's great. Yep. I have a resolution, and actually in the resolution, Councillor Smith, I see you. In the resolution, it does say the general vicinity, one on Hudson. Well, I'll read it when we get to it. Councillor Smith?
I think this is a terrific concept. As others have noted, speeding is a problem, in many areas. So I just wanted to understand the process, because this is surely going to provoke questions from others. I've forwarded 2 emails. One, the Irish Line residents there have been concerned, expressed in writing. This was discussed at infrastructure committee meeting, many months ago. And we can't seem to take down the 60-kilometer-an-hour sign that, or 60 kilometers per hour sign that's there now. Recently had one on Wilkinson. Again, a group of neighbors very concerned about speed on a straight stretch of road. So as I understand the process, they order the signs, and we'll put them up, provide the posts, and our roads crew will install them. And is there a well-defined process here, or is it just work with Rob and make it happen?
Good question. This one had to come to council because it's different. It does take time to write a letter and come to council for approval. So I don't know if we want to just blanket and say, as long as the roads department says it's okay. So really, that's more of a question to councillors. Do we want to leave this in the hands of the roads department? If, as people are listening to this, someone, for instance, use Wigamog Road, because they were also on our last council meeting. If they come forward, do they need to go through council, or are we comfortable with the roads department handling any further request similar to this? What do people think? Councillor Clark?
Yeah, I would think that as long as the volumes don't get too large and it becomes a bit of a burden for the roads department, I would suggest that they can probably deal directly, with approval of Rob, but deal directly with the roads department on it. If it does get to be a bit onerous, then bring it back to council, and we'll figure out if we have to budget for the additional time and effort.
Councillor McKechnie?
Yeah, I'd like to ask Rob a question. Rob, was it not discussed, and I don't know whether you want them to do it or not, but you would, maybe I misinterpreted this, but where you would tell them where to put the signs, like pick the spots, and they were going to put them up, or are our crews going to be doing that?
We could put them up if council wishes. Say we're not talking 50 signs, so it's not going to take a long time. They're all in the same area. I know when the cottage watch from the Canisius Lake Association went up, I believe we staked the location, they installed the sign. Again, there wasn't a lot of signs there to worry about. My concern would be with all of these signs, it's going to be on a case-by-case basis. We don't have any standard across the municipality for, signs such as these. They're non-regulatory. We didn't specify any reflectivity. We're going to ask them to make sure they're reflective to some degree. But where does the onus on the municipality lie? Once the signs are up, they're on our right of way. If they get knocked over, do we put them up? If the signs fade, do we replace them? Something to that matter. As much as I'm not an advocate of administration, we're almost talking licenses of occupation, which I don't want to go down that road. But I want to keep it as simple as possible. But once the signs are up, they're up, and they have to be maintained. They have to be safe for the public.
Mayor had a question, then Councillor McKechnie, I see you, so we'll just go to Tamara first.
I was just going to agree with Rob that I think, and John, and Councillor Smith, that I think there does need to be a process because every situation is going to be different. Irish Line Road doesn't have a road association. Cranberry Lake doesn't have an association. So it'll be difficult for places like that have the same kind of desires to bring something forward unless one person wants to go collect from all their neighbors, which might be kind of awkward. So I don't know if we could think of something and go ahead with this one because we don't want to slow it down. They've got some momentum and maybe this becomes a template that we can offer. We have a adopt a road program for picking up garbage. Just having some templates and forms. And I think if people come forward with a request, we can look at it on an individual basis and figure it out. I don't think we'll be flooded all at once. I could be wrong.
But I think the question, and Councillor McKechnie was next, but does the request come to council like this has, or can the request go to the Public Works Department?
I would suggest it come back to council at this point so we can kind of evaluate how much the requests are coming forward because they will have long-term maintenance requirements, as you've noted, and things like that. And I think you just want to have an idea because each request is also going to come with, like I said, if the group doesn't have a way to fund their signs, there's going to be requests around that as well. So.
Okay. Councillor McKechnie?
Yeah. The associations up there are funding in 100% other than the used poles that we're donating. So, and they understand that if the signs get knocked down, they have to put them back up. And I think they definitely understand that if they fade, they want to put new ones up, like buy new ones in 2 years, 5 years. There's no financial cost to us at all other than a few used poles. So just want to make that clear.
So just to move forward with this one, we do have a resolution, and in the resolution it gives the general location. And for now, any further requests will still flow through council for approval with staff input. Okay. So I need a mover. Maybe Councillor McKechnie might want to move this one. Oh, look, he did. And seconder, Councillor Clark. Be it resolved that the primary sign presented by FIRA and the Haliburton Lake Cottagers Association be permitted to be posted in the following locations: one sign on Hodson Road, one sign on Dunn Road, 2 signs on Curry Road, and 2 signs on Haliburton Lake Road. All in favor? And that is carried. Any opposed? And that's carried. Okay, excellent. So I believe, John, this is the landfill revenue summary. If there's any, not that the landfill's all new to you, but if there's any questions, we'll direct it to you.
Yeah, it's great to meet everyone. The landfill summary, I have to thank Mallory for preparing it. It was the May report, so I wasn't here yet at that point. Does anyone have any questions about the revenue for the landfill over the past May?
I think the numbers are still quite up, which indicates that people were home doing home renovations, and it's actually a good sign that the revenue was still fairly close. Mallory wants to chime in, and then Deputy Mayor Kennedy. Mallory?
I just wanted to note that the revenue summary kind of reflects how popular the debit and credit machines have been, because obviously the tipping fees didn't slow down. So people found other methods of using the landfill. So that shows you right there that it was successful to move towards less cash at our landfills. That's the only point I want.
Okay, great. Deputy Mayor Kennedy?
Just to follow up on that one, is the debit machine working at Harcourt yet?
It's going to be installed this week. Our aim is to go live with the new system on the 27th. So residents would be able to use debit and credit at Harcourt. We're just waiting for some additional technology to come in from the county's IT department so we can install that.
Great. Okay, so Tammy, you heard that loud and clear, right? Okay, Councillor Wood Roberts.
I just have a question for Barbara. Do we keep a limit or a cap on the charge accounts? It just looks like that number's up a significant little bit for May.
Yeah, so that's really dependent on the business at the time. Those charge accounts are contractors, so based on their activity.
Are they like, I mean, is there a cap to how much their account can go up to before they have to pay?
Typically, we don't have a set credit limit. We do monitor the accounts very closely. Nice to say that our contractors are very obliging. One thing that we implemented about a year ago was the ability to pay by e-transfer, and we found that that has been very practical for the contractors.
Good. Thank you.
Excellent. Okay, so I do have a resolution for that. So I need a mover and a seconder. Councillor Clark, Councillor Wood Roberts. Be it resolved, the council acknowledges receipt of the May 2020 landfill revenue summary. All in favor? Excellent, that's carried. And then this next report, which is to do with batteries and battery collection.
Yeah, so since 2013, the municipalities had an agreement with Raw Materials Corporation, or RMC, to collect and process household batteries, including alkaline and rechargeable batteries. At the same time, starting on July 1st of this year, a new Ontario regulations coming into effect for those single-use and rechargeable household batteries. So in light of that new regulation, we're recommending that the municipality enter into a new agreement with RMC. In that new agreement, RMC would actually provide us with a financial incentive of 25 cents per pound of alkaline batteries collected at the Haliburton landfill. So we'd be consolidating batteries at the Haliburton landfill, which has been the practice we've been doing up to now anyways. We can anticipate in this new program that we'd receive approximately $930 per year based on the incentive and kind of the average tonnage we've been receiving over the past few years for those single-use and rechargeable batteries. RMC would also then provide us with some additional bins and signage for all the landfill sites so we can have consistent messaging for our residents.
That's great news, really. Now, we used to have a smaller container here at the office, and I don't know if we'll continue to do that. We're only open for appointments only at this point, but I don't know if they had a smaller, I used to bring batteries in here, that's why I know.
Yeah, we definitely have a plan to keep that bin at the administrative offices. Obviously, we're not going to promote that at this point with the admin offices being closed to the public for the most part.
Okay. Questions for John? Deputy Mayor Kennedy?
And John, if somebody on Kinesis Lake, for example, do they have to drive those batteries into Haliburton to dispose of them, or is there a
no, they can take them to the Kinesis,
or whatever you want to call it, drop off there?
Yeah, there's going to be drop-offs at all the landfill sites, so they can go to Kinesis Lake. Just our staff will consolidate them at Haliburton.
Okay, thank you.
And that leads me to one other thing is John, since you've already been here, you've been working very hard on social media posts and different messaging and doing a fabulous job already there. And this is a great opportunity too to get that message out. Please do not put your battery in your regular household garbage. There's a safe place to do that, and it's not, you don't need to wait to hazardous household day. There's a place for that. So and also, speaking of which, our hazardous household days are coming up, and so we'll promote those as well. through social media posts.
Correct.
Any other questions on the battery? No, so we do have a mover and seconder, please. I need a mover and seconder. Councillor Clark has, okay, and Councillor Smith. Be it resolved that council directs staff to proceed with entering into an agreement with Raw Materials Corporation for the collection and processing of household single-use rechargeable batteries as designated by Ontario Regulation 30-20 batteries commencing July 1st, 2020. All in favor? Great. Any opposed? Seeing none, that is carried. Okay, so any other further questions before we say goodbye to John and Rob? Okay, thanks very much. Oh, Rob?
I just wanted to add one more thing, because we had mentioned the Coleman Lake Bridge Deck would be, one of the outstanding projects, and I just wanted to follow up with everybody that we do have a pre-construction meeting in a couple weeks on that project. It did get held up because there was some nesting birds underneath the bridge deck that weren't there the last time they were under it. So that certainly put us back a little bit, but it is very much moving forward and will be done this year.
Thanks for the update. Yes, I saw the pictures of the birds, but that's okay. Okay, so thanks very much, guys, and we'll see you. And then we will move into Parks and Recreation, and Andrew Wilby is on a course, I believe. Tamara, is he on?
No, we're doing the facilities assessments for the asset management plans.
Sorry, that was it, not a course. Yep. Okay, so Andrea Mueller will be coming in for any questions, but basically that update is very detailed and easy to read when it's highlighted in yellow and you can see the new things. The new water fountains going up and around, the electronic sign. I'm here at the municipal office and I can see the location getting ready. So for the new electronic sign. Hi, Andrea.
Hello.
I like your background.
Thank you. I decided to use that instead of the room I'm in.
Very nice. So I was just going through the report. Is there anything? This is the project summary. Is there anything you wanted to highlight in there?
That one is for the parks, more so for the parks and arena. Mine isn't actually attached. I'll make sure to attach it for July. One of the things that would be on our report that isn't there right now is working on the new website. So we've had a few meetings with the web developers. So it's exciting. It's something that we're working on, and we meet weekly and have tasks to prepare and be ready for the following week. So moving along on that one. So that's one of the bigger things, and then working on reopening guides as well. So working on a community center reopening guide, one for the arena. I sat in on a return to hockey framework for municipalities and private arenas last week. There's a lot of information. The Ontario Recreation Facilities Association has information. So we're just trying to gather all that information and figure out what steps we need to take. There may be a need to purchase some equipment, which I'm sure Andrew will talk about next time. We're still just waiting to get a few more things. And he got locked out of one of the memberships, and I have no access to it. So we're trying to gain that information as well. So those are the kind of things that we've been busy working on right now. And
getting the arena back up and running will be a huge task, and one that we'll hopefully be able to do this fall. I know I saw something on Minor Hockey, the Storm posting stuff and working, they're getting best practices and what's being said for across.
They had an executive meeting last night and they're supposed to update. They're going to give me any updates they have. We've been working really closely with our groups, just trying to keep everybody in the loop and know what's happening. And as we get information, we process it. So currently though, with arenas, doesn't matter what kind of arena you are, there's only allowed to be a maximum of 10 people on the ice, and it has to be skill-based training only. So even if our arena was open and we wanted to rent it out to somebody, that person would not be allowed to enter into a game of hockey with their friends. Like that's what so it's tricky, it's challenging, and nobody knows exactly when things will be lifted, but we do know that in the fall when there is ice, or if there is ice, we can have people practicing skills-based things. We could do public skating, but on a, only 10 people on the ice and have to do contact tracing and stuff like that. So
sign in and screen and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Okay, so just because we have this report up, that's Andrew's report, but I just, so I don't know if Barbara, you wanted to chime in on anything as there, but I did mention in the very beginning of the meeting in terms of washrooms and garbage, washroom cleaning and garbage collection. We have increased that due to COVID-19 to make sure that our public washrooms, while they're all privies at this point, next year we'll have something different, but they are being cleaned on a higher schedule, and the garbage collection in and around town. It's incredibly hard to keep up with the garbage collection, particularly in the downtown core, with the amount of takeout that's happening. So I would hope that perhaps the restaurants that are offering takeout would also offer garbage, or people could take them home. It just takes one family's takeout and practically fill the receptacles. So, but I see that's glad that that's happening. Councillor Clark, did you want to talk anything further here?
Yeah, just with regard to the Rotary Beach area, I say that was used last week for the first time for the farmers market. So I think it may require a little closer attention to address both the washroom and the garbage receptacle pickup. If you could pass it along to Andrew for his crew, just to make, because that's all new.
I can do that for sure. And I know the Farmers Market Association, what they're doing is on Tuesdays, they're flipping over the picnic tables to discourage people from sitting there and eating. And they're putting notices up just to try and discourage people lingering and staying in that area, because they have to follow certain protocols from the health unit to stay in operation. So, but yes, I can pass that along to Andrew for sure.
Great. Yeah, thanks, Andrew.
Okay, great. So there is a resolution to receive the Parks and Rec work summary. So maybe we'll do that and then just ask Andrea any more questions about your report. So I need a mover for that, please. Councillor Smith, Deputy Mayor Kennedy. Be it resolved, the Council acknowledges receipt of the June update of the 2020 Parks and Recreation work summary. All those in favor? And any opposed? And that's carried. And so just in your report, Andrea, you were the geocaching.
Yeah, so there's a geocaching. We've been working with Highlands East for numerous years now. Harcourt was part of their geocaching capital of Canada. So during the 150th birthday of Canada, and then of course of Dysart, there were special geocaches set up throughout the Highlands East and Harcourt area. So those have been really successful. And now they're looking to put in a couple of signs in Harcourt as part of an adventure lab. So the adventure lab is something where you're not touching any geocaches, you're not pulling apart any puzzles. It's you take your phone up to a sign, there's a code on it, and then you can solve these puzzles. And these are quite popular. There's one set up in the sculpture forest, and then at where they're looking to put some in the Harcourt areas in and around the community center, there's 2 or 3 spots. And the Harcourt Community Center board chair has been consulted, as well as Councillor Donaldson, and everyone's in agreement. They're providing all the infrastructure, they're providing the signs, we just have the location. We also have Wi-Fi there, which makes it successful. So they can't actually put any directly in Wilberforce, which is they're not too happy about, because that's part of it's one of their projects, but they can put a couple in Harcourt. So
okay, great. And then also the electronic sign.
Yes. Yeah, so you mentioned the electronic sign, and very excited. We had some concrete work, some excavation and concrete work done last week. We're just waiting now to hear when they're coming back with the sign. The day they come back with the sign, Gerald Sharp is already on standby, so that way that he can run the conduit and everything can be put in place. And then we can begin training on how to make the digital sign work.
That's great.
Yeah.
Exciting.
And something else, sorry. It was probably in Andrew's report, but I didn't want to pull it up and lose my screen. But there's the accessible beach mat is in at Rotary Beach as well too. So that's something that it's there, and if it goes well and it gets use, then it may be something to look at adding to other beach areas down the road for people to be able to get smooth transition from a pathway or a vehicle down to the water's edge, traversing across sand.
So I know it's being used because I had someone reach out to me and thank me for that we did that. We got that through a grant. But it was the fact that we even saw that there was a need for that. And I asked the person if they were comfortable that maybe we could take their picture using it, because it would just be so nice to show that. So anyway, I'll let you know if there's an opportunity for that. But it is being used and it is much appreciated.
And even if they're not comfortable with the picture, if we could have a little written blurb or testimonial from them, just because if we are asked to put that in with the grant.
That's what I was thinking, is just,
yeah.
Even if we didn't do it as a social media, but to do that. So anyway, that I've forgotten about that. That's fabulous.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Andrea? No. All right. So there is a resolution to receive her report. Mover. Tammy, or Councillor Donaldson, Councillor Wood Roberts. Be it resolved that Council acknowledges received the June 23rd, 2020 Recreation Program update. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So
next we have the museum operations report, and I believe Kate's coming into the meeting. So just welcome, Kate.
Hello, how are you doing?
Very good.
So in terms of the museum, the big news is that under the Stage 2 guidelines for reopening the province, museums are permitted to start to look at reopening. So starting next week, the museum is going to be open by appointment. So we're asking individual family groups and people within their social bubbles to book a time with us to come and visit the museum. So we're taking it slowly, and of all the precautions will be in place, but it is a step towards getting back to everything being fully up and operational. In terms of programming at the museum, our regular roster of summer programs, we're turning a lot of that around and going to be presenting a lot of that content online instead. And that's what an awful lot of museums across the country are doing, even as they reopen, just because the feeling is everyone wants to move fairly cautiously on this. We're all very optimistic, but rather than having to backpedal in terms of opening later on. So we'll be doing that mix in the weeks moving forward. And we're excited to start welcoming visitors back again. So that's the big news.
That's great. And so what, they'll just by appointment through telephone, or would they be able to email, or how can we get that message out, how they book the appointment?
So they'll actually be able to book online with us. We'll be able to work that. We can work that through with people as well. So I mean, definitely if anyone gets daunted by the system, I'll be putting it all out on our social media and web and everything. It's all ready to roll. Yes, if anyone gets daunted by it at any point, we're always at the end of phone or an email, and we can help people with their bookings, and also just to talk people through the process and what's involved in ensuring the health and safety of visitors, staff, and the community, and all those guidelines as well. So yeah, definitely talking everyone through those processes.
That's great. And one thing I've noticed is you're getting a lot of uptake on your social media posts with the photographs, whether it be for Father's Day, like you're sort of making them relevant to the time or whichever. I wondered, is it at all possible, or if we have the technology to do some video walkthroughs of like the Reed House? I don't know how they would work lighting wise and all of that, or our outbuildings of the log buildings. It would be really nice to have like some short 1-minute video clips, but.
Yeah, and actually that's a part of the material that I've been working on for the summer as well, is producing some video content as well, because there are lots of things that we can showcase. So no, that's something that's already in the works. It's all good.
Good. Any questions for Kate? Councillor Smith?
Thank you. Kate, great to see the enthusiasm that's evident in terms of reopening. And just a quick question to that. So as you're reopening it, have you presented the plans to the emergency control group and got their advice and support?
Yes. So as soon as it was announced that museums were allowed to reopen under the stage 2 reopening guidelines, I was invited by the emergency control group to participate in one of their meetings, and we talked about what would be involved as well. And we're taking all of those guidelines, everything that was suggested, we're working within all of that. And also museums across the province, all of the provincial museums associations and national museums associations are also laying out guidelines and suggestions for how museums can proceed safely as well. So we're taking all of that under advisement, and also larger international organizations such as ICON. So yeah, we're working with all of that.
Okay, thank you very much.
Question. Okay, I have a motion to receive the status monthly report. Motion, mover please. Councillor Clark, Councillor Smith. The council accepts the monthly status report regarding museum operations. All in favor? And that is carried. Thank you very much, Kate.
Thank
I
you.
look forward to your videography. And next we'll move into building and bylaw. We'll just wait till the Carl and Robert come into the meeting. Welcome, Carl. Welcome, Robert. Thanks. Thanks for waiting. So the first item is the building permit report. Obviously, we were processing. It looks actually really good, all things considered, Carl.
Yeah, it slowed down. I mean, we're not meeting the numbers of even last year, which was slower. I checked today as to what we were in comparison to June 23rd, and we're exactly the same as we were last year, which isn't great. I'm not sure what big projects are expected this year. It doesn't appear that there's anything on the books to start this year. So we may be down in revenues this year with regards to permits, but it is what it is.
Certainly in the building actual permits, but over the last couple of years, we've had the permits out now for the Gardens Retirement Home, and the home hardware is up and built, and so now we've had some major construction in the last little while, and so while if permits are low, assessment is reflective of those bumper years in a couple of years. It filters down, so I think this is actually still pretty good, all things considered. Any questions on the building permit report? Okay, if there's no further questions, I do have a resolution to receive. So in mover and seconder, Councillor Clark, Councillor McKechnie. Be it resolved, the council acknowledges receipt of the May 2020 building permit report. All in favor? And that's carried. And we'll move on then to the bylaw report. So Robert.
Let me unmute myself here. Good morning, everyone. We have, as you can see, a basic report from last month. Not too much in doing with the COVID-19. We had a couple of animal calls last month. One resulted in laying of a charge, letting the dog roam after being served with notice of violations and warned a couple times. We had to proceed with enforcement on that resident. Parking, again, is free during the COVID-19. I was in not last meeting, but the meeting before, and the EOC has decided they're going to go month to month, just looking at whether or not to open up the parking meters in town again. Property standards, we have 4 complaints that are currently open right now, and an update on one of them is being resolved as it goes on right now. Noise complaints, there was 1 noise complaint last month. It was resolved quite quickly, as it was just a byproduct of the machinery that was being used. So there was nothing in the bylaw that we could proceed with any kind of enforcement on that. The signs and licensing, 2 sign permits were issued to 2 of our local businesses in town here. Refreshment vehicles, 3 of our local businesses again were issued their licenses. Trailer parks and campgrounds, the 4 that we have in the municipality were issued their licenses and all complied with the restrictions and that during COVID-19, which is really good, and all owners were very happy to be a part of that and to get everything moving so people can enjoy their summer. COVID-19 EMCPA enforcement, we had 3 complaints filed. All 3 complaints were closed and resolved and reported to the ministry as per the Attorney General wanting and the Solicitor General wanting us to provide some information week to week. In the last 2 weeks, we haven't had anything, so it's all looking pretty good on the bylaw standpoint.
Great, and I do know, while there's no, just one sec there, while there's not in this report, because these reports are to the end of for May, but there has been some firework complaints. So I think maybe this would be a good time to just let the public know what our firework bylaw is. This year is going to be quite a bit confusing, because I believe our bylaw says the weekend closest to Canada Day, or however it's worded, and Canada Day lands on a Wednesday. But fireworks are permitted on Canada Day for people, but they're not permitted, say, tonight on June 23rd. So I'd like to see if we can't, we did have, and if any councillors receive complaints, please put it through the bylaw department, through Robert, so he can track, monitor, and we do intend to take this seriously. Year 1 was education. I think year 2 is still going to be a bit of education, but we want to take this bylaw very seriously. So we can't do that if we just hear anecdotally that there's a complaint. We need to hear that. So. And as well, I think one of the things with the sale of fireworks, that anywhere where the sale of fireworks were to have a short sheet, not the whole detailed bylaw, but the sheet that just basically displays the gist of our bylaw. Councillor Clark? Unmute.
A quick question for Rob. The COVID-19 complaints you're dealing with, Rob, what form are they? What type of situations are those?
Most of them are just where businesses not complying with medical regulations that the health and safety, like the health units have put out. People complaining that there's no wash stations or anything like that on their entrances to some of the businesses. One of them was a issue for doing a cottage rental while they were still restricted. We got that complaint the day before, actually the day on that. They said that they were going to allow the cottage rentals to start back up again on midnight that night, but the 12:01 a.m. the next day. So when that when that happened, the restrictions is gone. So I mean, we couldn't enforce it on that end of things. Yeah, that's basically what it was. What they were, the cottage rentals, and just not having hand wash stations and that.
Great, thanks, Rob.
Okay, Councillor Smith.
Thank you. Just on the fireworks bylaw, we might have 2 or 3 people listening to the council meeting today. So to use this as an education opportunity, Rob, you could maybe confirm this. I don't have time to look it up here, but the fireworks bylaw, as I recall it, permits fireworks on Canada Day itself and both weekends around Canada Day. So with Canada Day falling on the Wednesday this year, you could do fireworks the last weekend of June, Wednesday, July 1st, and then that first weekend, that would be the weekend of July 4th and 5th. Is that correct?
That is correct. So you're allowed permitted the day of, and then weekend before and weekend after for Canada.
Yeah. Just for Canada Day has that 2 weekend privilege. So now the 3 people that are watching us can be aware of the rules. Thank you.
A lot more than 3 people. Yes.
I was just, I know we talked about it in the EOC the other day, but maybe if Robert could put together just a simple notice specific to Canada Day with the specific dates, like not weekends, but the specific dates and times that they're allowed. And I think there's an email list there somewhere of all the vendors who sell fireworks locally. It's not very many. If that could be sent to them and maybe they could be encouraged to post that where they sell it as well, that might help get it out.
I think it's mandatory that they post it. That was part of our bylaw. It was mandatory.
Well, yeah, I don't think that part's mandatory. I just mean if we could send them a simplified Canada Day specific rules that they could ask them if they would post beside their displays so people are aware.
Okay.
So they do have, and I can get that done for you. That's not a problem. I'll take care of that. They are required to post when they can allow fireworks, like when we allow fireworks right next to the displays. So, I mean, I can also do some follow up with that if council wishes, and just make sure everything is going according with that.
Yeah, I was just thinking something simpler and easy to read when you're standing at the till, because it can get lost in all those other holidays. And if we can focus on this weekend.
Yeah, no problem.
Councillor Kennedy, Deputy Mayor Kennedy.
Yeah, Rob, just for clarification, do we need to look at this bylaw as far as the ambiguity around the language concerning Canada Day? So is your interpretation that next year with Canada Day being on the Thursday, would that mean that it would be July the 1st and then July the 3rd, 4th, not the weekend before? I'm just trying to get away from having to go all like 2 weekends plus the Canada Day. I think the original intent was the weekend closest to actual Canada Day, but it reads that now we're allowing it. And of course, this year, the first one, it's a Wednesday, but do we need to take a look at that bylaw for clarification for you?
I can take a look at it again and just clarify, but my interpretation was, yeah, we do it the weekend before on the date and then the weekend after. And that's what I would read too for what you just, you're suggesting there is on the Thursday, it would be the weekend before and the weekend after as well.
Yeah. The way it reads now.
Yeah.
Mayor, you want to weigh in?
Yeah, this is just out of left field, but I noticed Highlands East just passed their fireworks bylaw and it includes Labor Day weekend, and Minden Hills also includes Labor Day weekend. I think when we passed this last year, we said we would maybe look at that because it was a potential issue where the lake split between the towns. So it's just out of the blue. Sorry to throw that out, but while you're talking about.
I think that's fair to, sometimes bylaws get passed and it was a brand new bylaw and we did our best with the language and with the wording. But so Robert, maybe for next meeting, you can bring the bylaw forward and then get direction for, and we'll keep in mind all those comments. I believe Councillor Wood Roberts, you had your hand up. Yes.
I had a question about the COVID enforcement per se. So Robert would have the authority to, stop groups of greater than 5 to 10 people and that kind of thing. Is that actually happening? Are there being complaints made?
I haven't had complaints in about 2 weeks about anything. So if they are happening, I'm unaware of those groups happening, and nobody's complained to me about 10 or more people being in groups.
Okay. Thank you.
Councillor Clark.
Yeah, Andrea, on the fireworks bylaw we put in last year, I remember the discussion around other townships that had the Labor Day, but because of the Rotary Club in Halliburton and traditionally doing fireworks on the civic weekend, I think we opted to include the civic weekend, but not include the Labor Day weekend. There's probably some notes on the decision or the discussion we had at that time. It might be worth looking at.
Perhaps, but I think it's worth reviewing, especially if neighboring municipalities are now also having their firework bylaws. So perhaps we could just bring the bylaw back on the agenda, and if there's recommendations to change, it would take almost then the whole month to come back for the August meeting, but then that would be effective for Labor Day if we so choose. So if we review it again at our July meeting and we say, yes, make these changes, then the bylaw can come back, a revised bylaw could come in August, and it would be effective for Labor Day. Does that make sense to the clerk? Mallory, is that she's nodding? I think so. Okay,
Yes,
so
that
just
makes
put it on
sense.
the agenda and we'll have discussion on the firework bylaw at the July meeting. Fair enough. Anything else here for Robert? We did talk about keeping the parking, and the EOC group is still reviewing that. It's very hard to see zeros in there when there used to be quite a bit of revenue there, and that help offset expenses. So we have to keep that in mind, but we are trying to help our businesses in downtown. And the medical center gate is not up and running yet. So if there's no further questions, I have a resolution to receive that report. Mover, please. Councillor Wood Roberts, Councillor Smith. Be it resolved, the council acknowledges receipt of the May 2020 bylaw report. All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. And next you have the canine control bylaw.
Correct.
We've discussed
So
this several times.
Sorry?
No, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, okay. So last council meeting, council approved was okay with the draft of the canine bylaw. From there, we sent it out to the Attorney General for any comments and review for concerns that they may have with how we've written the bylaw. They sent it back, and very quickly, actually, which was very nice. The only changes they had were to the short form wording and for set fines, and we made the changes on those, and they think it's a good to go bylaw. So we're just looking for council to approve the final draft of the canine bylaw, so we can then send away for the set fines to the Attorney General.
Excellent. Good job on all of that. It's a process. I have a mover and a seconder for that. Deputy Mayor Kennedy, Councillor McKechnie. Be it resolved that bylaw 2020-45, being a bylaw to regulate the keeping and control of dogs within the Corporation of the United Townships of Dysart et al., be read a first, second, and third time, passed, signed, and the corporate seal attached thereto. All in favor? Excellent. That is carried. No opposite. Nobody opposed. No. Carried. Okay. Well, thanks very much, gentlemen. Much appreciated. And we're moving right along, and we'll go then to our finance section, of which Barbara will lead us through. Barbara, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, thank you. So the first report there is the May check summary, and typical May. Total accounts payable was just under 925,000, and we had payroll disbursements of 175,000 for a total of $1.1 million.
Any questions on that? We do have a resolution to receive. I'll need a mover and seconder. Moved by Councillor Clark, seconded by Councillor Wood Roberts. Be it resolved, the council acknowledges receipt of the May 2020 check summary. All in favor? And that's carried. Okay, Barbara.
Okay, so the metered sewage readings at the end of May continuing to trend downward. If we look at comparative to 2019, we're about 20% behind. Still uncertain where this is going to go for the balance of the year. Hopefully we'll be able to gain some traction as the economy starts opening up.
Again, this will be as an example of how when we do our halfway through budget analysis and how COVID has affected us. We'll have some reports on this. So any questions on the metered sewage, Councillor Smith?
Just to follow up on that, yes, we're down about 20% compared to 2019, but we're down even further because 2019 was, you know, not quite 20, but more than 15% lower than 2018. And so I guess from an environmental point of view, we could say that's good news. There's you know, less to be processed, but from an economic perspective, wanted to confirm, Barbara, will you be giving us an update here in terms of, you know, the metered sewage is supposed to be a break-even operation, and that sort of decline in volume, we're you know, we're facing some challenges, I imagine. How great, you know, is that going to be in terms of your sense? Because we're probably never going to get back to the 2018 levels again, eh?
Yeah, so one of the things that Public Works is looking at, as well as the actual meters at each of the locations to make sure that they are functioning properly. Obviously, some of the users have taken effective measures over the years to reduce their water consumption, but definitely it will have an impact on the environment budget for the users.
And one way to get, well, this is also just the metered sewage, so you have to add that with the ERUs that we collect as well. So when we start to see some more development and infill, if you will, in the village, or people that are on the sewers, such as an example of Wallings Way, when that's come on board, that helps the overall income too. So where we have gardens development, hopefully occupancy this time next year, those things will help. And there's room, it's actually, I believe the sewer plant works a bit better when it's a higher capacity than lower environmentally. So, okay, so if there's no further questions, I do have resolutions on that to receive. So mover and seconder, please. Councillor McKechnie, Councillor Smith. Be it resolved, the council acknowledges receipt of the May 2020 metered sewage readings report. All in favor? Carries. Thank you. Some tax write-offs or adjustments, write-off.
Yeah, so based on section 357 of the Municipal Act, the tax adjustments presented here are for two properties, demolition, and the total municipal share is $337.65.
Okay. Any questions? Mover and seconder, please. Councillor Clark, Councillor Donaldson. Be it resolved that council authorizes tax adjustments for applications made under section 357 Municipal Act 2001 as amended as follows. And the amounts are there. All in favor? Any opposed? Yep, carried. Dymo bus.
Yes, so this report here is the typical report that would have gone to the Dymo committee in the past. So again, the revenue, obviously the bus is operating on a very, very limited basis. Revenue is down. Some of the expenses are down as well, operating expenses. However, as we'll see in the forecast that will be presented next at the next council meeting, there are some significant repairs to the bus. So that will have an impact on their overall budget for 2020.
Now, would that not come out of the reserve though?
So I just have to go back and confirm with the guidelines of the agreement from the dedicated gas tax funds. That's what's sitting in the reserve. And typically we do keep those funds set aside for replacement of a vehicle. But I will double check with the ministry to make sure, you know, the type of repair that we're looking at would qualify to be drawn from the grant money.
Okay, yes, right, I forgot. Okay, thank you for that. Mover and second, oh, sorry, Councillor Smith.
A quick question. You know, I note here that from the report that insurance is actually more than 25% of our bill, and in terms of our total expenditure budget. Have we talked to our insurance company and informed them about how far down usage is? Because many residents have either canceled insurance on a vehicle due to lack of use or gotten a rebate from their insurance company because they're not driving near as much as they were. And I guess we fall into the category with the bus of not using it near as much as we were.
Yeah, so the unit is still rolling. As far as checking with insurance, I have not done that. And I do know from my own experience that any sort of refund is very limited.
Well, I got $500 back, so I felt pretty good about that. But,
yeah, I can check with the insurance on that and see if there's any opportunity there for the municipality.
Okay. Tamara, did you want to weigh in on that?
No, I was just thinking, and I could be wrong, that don't they assess the rate based on our fleet at a certain given time of the year and then cost us based on that? So am I wrong on that, Barbara?
I think there's, as far as the annual renewal goes, it is based on the fleet. However, the calculation to determine the actual refund, from what I understand, there are a few variables there. And so again, I'll reach out to the insurance to see if there is any opportunity there.
Yeah, good question. Okay, there is a resolution to receive. Mover and seconder, please. Councillor Clark, Councillor Wood Roberts. Be it resolved, the council acknowledges receipt of the May 2020 Dymo Bus Revenue and Expenditure Report. All those in favor? That's carried. Okay, so, and then lastly is the Revenue and Expenditure Report.
Yes, so based on the request of council, I've now included a year-to-date comparative to the previous year. So there are some extra columns there. And as far as the 2020 results go at the end of May, you know, we all know that user fees are down. We know that there's been an impact on expenses throughout most of the different operational activities throughout the municipality. So Again, we'll complete the 2020 forecast, get a better feel of where we're at and where we'll be going for the rest of the year.
Okay, any questions on that? I do appreciate the expanded report. Thank you for doing that. Councillor Smith?
Took the words out of my mouth. Thank you. I think the this new report format is very clear and helpful, and so thank you for the effort in terms of turning that around so quickly. I did have a couple of questions as a result of that information, and one, go back to the sewer system, where our usage is down quite a bit. I note that the expenses year to date are for 2020 $365,000 compared to the $287,000 year to date 2019. And even though the use is down a lot, so it's those kind of two factors that were concerning me so much about that impact, and I look forward to getting more detail on that next month. There were a couple of other items that also concern in the roads department. The year-to-date overhead expense, so that's not the construction, but the overhead expense for May year-to-date is 49% of the budget. Is given kind of May, you'd think it should be about 40%. Is there anything in particular that's a concern there? Are we risking running over that for the year? Do you know?
Let me just check here, see if there's anything that's sticking out. So nothing stands out as far as that year-to-date consumption. The only thing I can think of offhand from just looking at, nothing sticks out at this point in time. When you're looking at the budget, you have to keep in mind that there's a lot of variables, and our operation isn't, it costs us $10 to run a department every month. So that 10 times 12 per month, if you will, is $120. It's not very flatline. There's a lot of peaks and valleys. So, and the one thing that I can point out here would be, as an example, through our budget process, we allocate some funds to the reserve, and that can happen early in the year and skew that year-to-date number, but as an overall, we're still on target. So just kind of keep that in mind when you're looking at some of the year-to-date numbers.
No, I know that, and I just was concerned in terms of the if you don't see any risk from an overall point of view, because it's a big number in terms of our overall budget for the roads overhead. The other area was the medical center. Now we know that revenue's down because we don't have the revenue stream coming in there. Mm-hmm. We have spent 3/4 of the total year's budget. Is the new parking gate system, has it been installed? Have we incurred that expense, and we just need an opportunity now to turn it on?
Yeah, so the medical center expense does include the cost of the parking gate. We have now we've set that up in our books. We've signed the contract, and so now work will begin next week, I believe, and that will skew the numbers again year-to-date. And because the project has been delayed, obviously there's going to be a significant impact on the revenue for the medical center parking gate.
Okay, but we've already paid most of the cost for the new gate, even though it's not actually physically installed yet.
Yeah, we've recognized the expense on our books. If you're looking at from a cash flow standpoint, we have paid 50%, which was required for us to get the project up and running.
Okay, thank you very much.
John, just thinking ahead to, as we see this is a consolidated version. So perhaps when we do the, maybe to give Barbara some direction for what we're expecting next month, when we do a mid-year budget review and how COVID-19 has affected, perhaps, I mean, we're looking at it electronically, so it doesn't matter to have like the more detailed, so we can dig deeper in. The counselors can see, oh, right, they're paid to XYZ company and the medical gate was fully now paid for. So perhaps I think that would help all of us. When you see the consolidated and you don't know what's in there, it's very hard to extract information from that. So would that be a good thing for the counselors? Let me just check with Barbara and then I'll go to Deputy Mayor Kennedy. What do you think, Barbara?
So if it's the desire of council to receive the detailed line by line, I can provide that to give a better insight on the summary, the month-to-month summary. And also when we do present the 2020 forecast, I will highlight some of the more significant areas of exposure.
I think for next month only, generally on a month-to-month, we can do this. We can contact you if there's anything outstanding. But for next month, the detailed report that spreads it out, that shows that, not that we're going to pick line by line. We passed the budget. We're just trying to see how COVID-19 has affected us and what measures we can take to mitigate that. So, Deputy Mayor Kennedy.
Yeah, I'm going to be a little bit different. I like actually this roll up because number one, the font size means I can actually read it all on one screen without having to scroll across. I'm wondering if, and sometimes I'll be quite honest, when I look at those detailed line by lines, it gets lost to me because we're looking at different cost centers for, like within the roads budget, there's about 17 lines to deal with, almost seems like the same thing. If there was a possibility of just maybe making notes out in the next section, just anomalies or indications of where you think it's going. I don't know if that's a compromise between the full-blown line by line or just to give us the heads up on here's a problem, or this line, it looks out of whack, but we've already paid the $200,000 for something, or we've transferred 300,000 over reserves already. I wonder if I'm not sure if that's a solution or not.
No, it's a very good point. I'll let Barbara answer and then I'll go to Councillor Clark.
Yeah, so are you suggesting then for the forecast to be in the summary forecast with comments, a comment column, or are you looking at having somewhat of a comment column on an ongoing monthly basis for this summary?
I think just on the June 30th statement going forward. Okay. If something flags in October, then that's bring that up.
Yeah, and typically what I like to do, if there is a flag, I will verbally comment on that. So if we can just then confirm the format that we want to present to council at the next meeting for the 2020 forecast, do we want the current format with some sort of comment column, or do we want a full-blown detail?
Okay, so we'll open that. Councillor Clark had a question, and then we'll look to see what the general consensus is. Councillor Clark?
Yeah, I think it's important that we stay at a fairly high level. We're supposed to be at a board level, not getting into that level of detail. But where it is important, I think, is an exception basis is where we should be looking at. So let's say if you've got something like the year-to-year piece you're doing, Barb, that looks excellent. That's great. But if you're seeing something that's 10% out of whack or whatever, then those would be the types of things where maybe maybe want a quick comment to say, is this a trend, or is this something that there's something that needs to be addressed? But deal with it on an exception basis as opposed to having to us go through all that individual detail. Thanks.
Yeah, and so I will say that staff right now are looking at the detailed line items. So in the background, there's a lot of thought and effort that goes into this process by the staff. And remember, again, it is a forecast.
Yeah.
I think Deputy Mayor Kennedy brings up a good point. These are actually, it's true, it's easier to read. And maybe then just having an explanation, decide if there's something, and understanding that, like Barbara said, that the ebbs and flows, and something might be at 75% at the 6-month mark. That's because but it's budgeted for, there's only 25% left to go on that, or a major item, or the parking gate meter, or parking gate rather, new one was purchased. So that purchase has happened. You can't spread that out over 12 months. So is the general consensus to leave it like this, but with explanation, and let's see the reports from the Treasury Department and the different department heads? Or do you want a detailed with the detail? So I'll show of hands to leave it as is with explanations for any anomalies or any outstandings. Okay, well, there you go. Leave it as is with explanations. Councillor Smith, your hand's up for a question.
Yep, thank you. Just one question. I know that the agenda gets posted on the Thursday late afternoon, prior to the meeting. With the the June results, you'll probably have those a little sooner. Would it be possible to send that financial report out a few days earlier than the publishing of the agenda? Just I don't know what that weekend's going to be like, but if it's a nice weekend, it might be nicer to spend it in the sun as opposed to reviewing those financial numbers.
I'll leave that with Barbara. The months get pretty tricky. Now, our council meeting is until the 28th, but
yeah, exactly.
Barbara, I don't know, is that possible?
Yeah, well, I'll try, but I won't guarantee. Like I say, this is quite a detailed process here. Again, there's a lot of staff involved in here, and so I will try my best to get it out a little bit earlier.
It still gives us the Friday and the Monday, and that's why we moved to council meetings to a Tuesday, because it was very hard to come in on a Monday morning. So it still gives us some time, and council meetings are the opportunity to ask those questions. So even if you have a question, you haven't been able to reach out to Barbara personally, then don't bring it up on the Tuesday. I think it might be hard pressed to get anything up before. Tamara, did you want to weigh in on that?
I was just going to say, based on the schedule that we have to work with all the department heads to get this information, and it would be really tight to try and get it out ahead of the agenda and have a good product.
Yes, I think we'll do our best. Councillor McKechnie?
I'd just like to ask a simple question. Why? I mean, Barbara's doing a great job as far as I'm concerned. And why is this trying to undermine?
Well, I just think the thought was that it will be a lot of reading, but it's also it's a lot of reading for us. It's a lot of preparation for staff to get ready. And I think the biggest thing to keep in mind, we've never done this before, but we've never been in a pandemic before. We've never had a year where we've had years where we've set budgets and we have a huge washout, and it costs $100,000 that we never budgeted for. So we've got to scramble and find that money. We've had other years where it snowed till it felt like May 1st, and it started snowing on October 31st, and the maintenance and the road snow plowing budget goes like this, and we've got to juggle. We've never seen anything like this. So keep in mind that it is just a projection. It's just a guess. I'm fine with waiting to the way the regular council meeting gets posted, and we'll review it as best we can and ask questions in July.
I'm sure that Barbara, if Barbara saw something that was very alarming, she's going to get it to our attention very quickly.
Yep.
So, I mean, let's give the lady some credit.
Yeah. Okay, so I think, Barbara, you know what to do. And I do have a motion to receive the revenue and expenditure report. So if I could have that mover and seconder, please. Councillor Wood Roberts, Councillor Smith. Be it resolved that council acknowledges receipt of the May 2020 revenue and expenditure report. All in favor? And that's carried. So now we go on to administration department and appointment bylaw. We've had time to review that. Any questions on that? Okay. Again, with changing to the committee of the whole, which we're aiming to meet at all in our for an August meeting. There's this followed from that. So I need a mover and seconder, please. Councillor Clark, Councillor McKechnie. Be it resolved that bylaw 2020-46, being a bylaw respecting the appointment of members of council and public representatives of the Municipality of Dysart et al., and to appoint members of council as representatives of the Municipality of Dysart et al. To external boards and organizations, be read a first, second, and third time, passed, signed, and the corporate seal attached thereto. All in favor? And that's carried. Haliburton County Library branch circulation. I'm, as the county councillor from Dysart, I sit on the library board. Just note that you can see the numbers, of course, for circulation have dropped off the face, but there are still some, and that's because staff are doing a lot of online things, and that they are able to programming, and the staff are taking those out. But you also see that the digital's gone way up, which is fabulous. And I believe it's this Thursday that you can, that we're starting to do curbside pickup with the library. And so there's some, just go online and look up how that's done. So that's really good. Any questions on that? Okay, a mover and seconder, please. Councillor Wood Roberts. Councillor Johnson, was that your hand? You're just rubbing your neck because it's a long meeting. Okay, Councillor Wood Roberts and Councillor Donaldson. Be it resolved that council receives the Haliburton County Library branch circulation totals as information. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. And lastly, a letter from Steve Clark, Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing. Call for federal action for reliable broadband access. One day, this will happen, I hope. So we've seen the letter. And any questions on that? Okay, so I need a mover and a seconder. Councillor Smith, seconder. Councillor Clark. Be it resolved that council acknowledges receipt of the communication from the Honorable Steve Clark, the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing, calling for federal action to provide funding for reliable broadband internet access across Ontario. All in favor? Anybody opposed? Have we ever needed internet more? So there are 2 items with no reports, but they're in there for ongoing reports from standing committees. None of the committees have met. They will be. So we can, I'm not, should we, I think we're going, should we adjourn and then go into closed or recess? Excuse me, we're going to recess. Yeah. And when we come back from a lunch break, and I'm going to propose that we recess for half an hour and that we will reconvene at 1 o'clock. But immediately when we reconvene, we will be going into closed session for 1 o'clock. So right now we are in recess. Okay, good. No, I don't know why. Do you go back? There we are. Okay, welcome back, everybody, from our recess. And as I said, now the first item is to go into closed session. So those of you watching, we will be going offline to go into our closed session. So I need a mover and a seconder to do that. Can Councillor Wood Roberts and a seconder, please? Councillor Smith. So be it resolved that council adjourn its regular meeting at 1:01 p.m. to discuss matters pursuant to section 239(2) of the Municipal Act 2001 as amended pertaining to a proposed disposition of land by the municipality in the township of Dysart, litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality or a local board, and advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose. All those in favor? That is carried, and we will now go into closed. It'll just take a minute, so we have to just wait a minute till we're actually in the closed session. Okay, welcome back. We are now resumed into open session. There was one resolution that will be read in open session that was discussed in closed, and it's regarding the second entrance, driveway entrance. So would I have I'll read it, and I'll need a mover and a seconder. Be it resolved that council deny construction of a second entrance onto the lands of Brundage from College Road. Is there a mover? Councillor Clark, seconder. Councillor Wood Roberts. You heard the resolution, all in favor? And that's carried. And that concludes just two resolutions to confirm. Mover and seconder for the confirmation bylaw. Councillor Deputy Mayor Kennedy and Councillor Clark. Oh, just a minute. Before I read that, is there a notice of motion?
Yes.
I was wondering there.
Almost forgot, almost forgot.
So I just wanted to real quick bring forward a notice of motion for next council meeting to start the process in creating a roadside rest area on County Road 10, which is Elephant Lake Road. And so if it could go on the agenda, then I can give details then.
And it's municipal property that we were gifted.
Yes.
Or gifted. Okay.
Yeah, so like it was in February of 2019, then we were gifted the property. come to council. And so a few things have just happened that I put all the pieces together and come up with an idea on what we could do with the property.
Okay, you want to discuss that at council next time. Is there a seconder for that?
I'll second that.
Seconder, Deputy Mayor Kennedy. So that's been recorded by the clerk. Excellent. Okay, and I already did take the mover and a seconder on the confirmation bylaw, so I'll just repeat that was Deputy Mayor Pat Kennedy and Councillor Larry Clark. Be it resolved that bylaw number 2020-47, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the regular council meeting held June 23rd, 2020, be read a first, second, and third time, passed, signed, and the corporate seal attached thereto. All in favor? And that's carried. And finally, the adjournment, mover and seconder, please. Councillor McKechnie, Councillor Wood Roberts. Be it resolved that council adjourn its regular meeting held June 23rd, 2020 at 3:24 p.m. All in favor? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Yeah, you too, everybody. Thanks.